Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast. I'm your host, Keely, Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, we are back with another episode. I'm a little nervous for this one, not going to lie. It's the defensive episode. We previewed the offense last week, and we knew it was going to be kind of easy. We knew the knowns, if you will. This time, there's a lot of unknown knowns, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing, too. Obviously, I'm an offensive guy, so I had a lot more fun last week, but I've been looking forward to this. You know, we've gotten a lot of heat already on Twitter with some of the questions, some on Instagram as well.
Some
Rightfully
heat.
so. Yeah, some people are coming out firing with the questions this week. But it's expected, right? It's not. There's no secrets. We all know last year USC's defense struggled a little bit. Started off hot, was great, turning the football over, really had that bend, don't break mentality to them, and that held true throughout the year, but it did hurt us in the long run down the stretch against Utah twice and then against Tulane. Ultimately weren't able to get a stop there at the end of the game, but I'm excited for this one. I'm looking forward to it. I'm backing Coach Riley. He's already came out in defense of Coach Grinch. You know, obviously I trust fully in Lincoln Riley, so I'm excited to address this episode head on and talk about this defense and what to look forward to going into fall camp.
I will put a disclaimer on this episode, though, solely because you and I have such weird schedules this week.
Yeah.
The only time that we had free that could overlap, and I'm going to show my phone because we are doing video, it is 7:44 on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
7:44 p.m. So we're a little tired, Cody. You were coaching football kids.
Had some quarterback workouts this morning in the heat. It's
multiple
been hot too
hour
lately,
drive. Yeah, I know.
Here in Orange County, so
you did a lot.
I was drained, got a little tired, but Keely and I both, like you said, we didn't have a lot of free time this week, but we love the pod. We're dedicated, so everyone listening, just know how much we enjoy doing this and how much we care about our listeners. I hopped in the car from Irvine, drove down here, and I guess up here, actually, and here we are, 7:45 at night, but we're ready to go, and just got rejuvenated. I'm back to life. I'm excited, and it'll be fun. I'm excited for this episode.
Me too. Alrighty, before we jump into it, just a couple reminders per usual. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us out, and if you want to go above and beyond, you can leave a review if your podcasting app allows you to do so. I know Spotify, you can do a star rating system, but Apple Podcast definitely lets you leave a review. So if you want to do that, it helps us ultimately with the algorithm, and that's the goal, to grow the show. So thank you to everyone who's done that so far. And if you ever want to get your voice heard on the show, be sure to look out for a tweet or a question box either on Twitter or Instagram. Our socials are VictoryPodUSC. And Cody, like you mentioned, we have a ton of questions again this episode, so thank you to everyone who submitted questions. I knew that the defensive episode was going to have a lot of questions, and I was definitely correct. So like I did last week, I'm going to sprinkle in questions as we're going through position groups just to make sure we don't have a 2-hour question segment of the show.
Which I enjoy, though. I do love.
You do
my
love it,
favorite
yes.
part of this is the questions, so I'm not complaining too much, but I'm ready for him this week. So let's go.
Yeah, for sure. And then we also have to announce our giveaway winner from last week's emoji entry, and then announce some new emojis. And then lastly, we're officially on YouTube now.
Yeah.
I know I teased it last week. We might put out the episode on YouTube. We ultimately did a little bit later, but we did put it out on YouTube. So if you want to watch the offensive episode, you can do that. And then you can find us at USC Athletics on YouTube. That's the channel. And we'll be on YouTube going forward, I believe, unless there's some major tech malfunction, which, knock on wood, there's not. But if you want to see how the sausage is made, go ahead and go to YouTube and watch how it's done.
That was one of the cool comments we got, too, I think, on Twitter was people asking, like, I always wondered what it looked like behind the scenes or how the episodes were made. So there's no more questions anymore. Now you can go on YouTube and watch it. And yeah, that last episode we just did with the offense was awesome. I personally, I'm getting used to it. You know me, even listening wise, I don't like watching myself. So I watched a little bit of it, but yeah, it was great. It was fun to do and being on camera, doing that, really showing everybody what the backdrop is and what we do down here. But yeah, going forward, hopefully we can do every episode on YouTube.
The cool part is I feel like we reached a whole different audience on YouTube. There were people who were like, oh, wait, Keely has a podcast? And I was like, yes, please listen. So it's cool. So thank you to everyone watching on YouTube.
Yeah, thank you.
Really glad to have you along for the ride. Alrighty, Cody, let's jump into this preview, part 2 of the 2023 roster. Let's start with the defensive line. And I'm going to start with just listing names. There's a lot of guys on the defensive line, so if you want to stop me at a certain point, go ahead. But first up, there's Barrett Alexander, who transferred from Georgia. He came in after spring camp concluded, so we haven't actually seen him in Cardinal and gold yet. Jack Sullivan, who also transferred. He transferred from Purdue. We did see him play this spring. Keon Bars, another transfer. I think that's a theme that you might be able to pick up on. He also transferred from Arizona. He's a redshirt senior, 6'3", 285. Tyrone Tellini, a redshirt senior. Solomon Bird, redshirt senior. Stanley Ta'afu, who I feel like who's been here for 8 years at this point. He is a redshirt senior. And then we have some younger names on the roster: Sam Green, Elijah Hughes, and Dijon Lafayette. And those are freshmen. And the last two I mentioned are incoming freshmen. So a lot of names there, Cody, that I just threw out to you. I don't know how you want to go about this. You want to go Bear first because he's the big name there, but go ahead.
Yeah, obviously Bear, a guy that we haven't got to see yet in Cardinal and Gold, guy that I'm very excited about. We did a breakdown of him a couple episodes ago. I think that was just after spring ball concluded, but huge news for the Trojans. Added much needed depth to that defensive line. And obviously, let's get it out of the way early. The elephant in the room with Thule leaving, there are some big shoes to fill. Yeah. So I'm excited that, and I know it is a lot of transfers, but I'm very excited with not only the depth, but the caliber of players that we added to that defensive line. Again, Bear Alexander only had 9 tackles last year, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Very big, strong, physical player for the interior of the defensive line. Didn't get a ton of playing time, so there's not a ton of tape on him. But coming out of high school, highly recruited player, obviously going to Georgia, one of the better defenses in all of college football. So I'm so excited for him to get to work with Coach Nua. I don't know how they're going to use him yet. Obviously, Keon Bars up there as well. 2 very physical, dominant guys that could both play kind of that nose technique position, that 1 or 2 shade, or I'm sorry, that 0 or 1 shade off the center. But nonetheless, great depth for USC. I don't know. You know, obviously, I expect him to be with the starting group day one, but he's going to have to earn his stripes. Obviously, he's going to have to come in and compete, learn this defensive scheme for Coach Grinch. But as fast as he can pick up this defense and understand the playbook, I think it's important to get him out there right away, get him some reps in the fall so he can be ready to go when season comes around.
What does he provide as a 6'3", 320-pound guy?
Yeah, the size there, 6'3", obviously. For a nose tackle, too, I played with Antoine Woods. And I'm sure a lot of people remember Twaka TV, his whole separate personality he had off the football field. One of the best people and players, teammates I've ever been around. Just awesome guy. So shout out Antoine if you're ever listening. But the size thing's really not that important. When I say that, I mean by height. You don't need to be a big, tall 6'5". It's almost better to be lower to the ground.
Kind of stocky?
As an interior defensive line, so you can get up underneath the center, the guard, guys that are very physical. But for him, the 320 pounds, that's what's important to me. That's just raw power. Him being able to shut down the run game, add some pressure in the pass game. I know it's not going to be huge for him coming off the edge, trying to spin move, swim move, doing all that stuff. But he can be a physical, dominant force that really helps USC. Where they struggled last year was in run defense. You know, there were a lot of gaping holes, especially in the Tulane game. You know, we gave up a lot of those big plays through the A-B gap, in the interior of the defensive line. So that's a huge piece for this USC defense that is much needed, that can start, very importantly, in stopping the run.
Yeah, I think Bear highlights the biggest difference to me when it comes to the defensive line and maybe just the front in general. Like, it just looks completely different.
Yeah.
And not only in just you look at the numbers when you look at the roster, but when I was watching the team in spring camp, it was like, this is just a different set of bodies that look just much more formidable, if you will, when facing an offensive line.
Yeah, and I know we haven't got there yet, but Keon Bars, a guy we're about to talk about in a second, exactly like you said, you walk out and you notice the physical presence of this defensive line. Not saying we didn't have that a year ago, but it's even amplified this year.
It's different.
It's intimidating. That's what you want, especially, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but especially when we get to the Big Ten. You want to have those bigger type of bodies. Those offensive lines, the Michigans, the Penn States, the Ohio States in the Big Ten, they pride themselves in that, being physical, being able to run the football, keeping their quarterback protected, keeping the quarterback clean in the pocket. You need to have a big physical defensive front to be able to get after those offensive line.
You mentioned him, but Keon Bars, what are you expecting from him?
Yeah, we got to see Keon, obviously, this spring. Was very excited. He was out there with the starting group in spring ball, and I think he was also there for the spring game. He started with the defensive line as well. Transferred from Arizona in 2029, had 39 tackles, another very big, physical, strong player. Be a great asset for the interior of this defensive line. Another guy a little bit taller, 6'3", but 285, moves well. I just saw a video of him, I think on Twitter yesterday. He put up like 29 or 30 reps in the bench press, 225, like it was nothing. It looked like he was benching the bar. So that just tells you how physical he is, getting off the ball, being able to get his hands underneath the shoulder pads, move guys around. A great read and react player, too, in the run game. And what I mean by that is he does a great job of interacting with the offensive line, being able to shed off and make the play in the backfield. So another guy that's going to be very important. I don't know who's going to be starting there at that, like I said, zero shade, that one technique between him and Bear. But I would love to see both of them on the field at the same time, which I think will happen. But yeah, it's exciting to see another big, strong, physical player that I think is going to make a huge impact for USC on defense.
Jack Sullivan is someone I mentioned we saw in spring camp. He kind of reminded me a little bit, maybe not in physical stature, but just in the role that he played of Nick Figueroa. He kind of moved around a little bit. He was a versatile piece. So where do you see him fitting in? Is he kind of the guy that will help figure out the Keon Bear situation, who you put next to him?
Yeah, Jack was starting at 3 technique in the spring game as well. A savvy player. He's a vet, a redshirt senior. His career stats, he's got 86 tackles, 14 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, a guy that knows how to play high-end, high-level college football. And again, I keep saying the word depth, and I repeat it, but that's a problem that we had last year was as soon as Thule came out or Nick or a couple guys, it felt like that defensive line lost that impact that they have. That's why it's so important that we're adding these guys that are transferring over to be able to come in and make that impact when the ones are out there, the twos are out there. And I hate, obviously saying ones and twos early on, and Coach Riley said, we don't have a first and second group yet. That's a great problem to have. But when you have your first team out there, second team, whenever you're rotating, you don't want to have a drop off in production. And when you add guys like Jack, Keon, Bear, you're allowed to have 3 guys that you can rotate in that interior defensive line with the first and second group that can continue to make an impact and keep their motor going all game long. If a guy gets tired, taps the shoulder, pulls a jersey, coach, I need one, we can send another dog out there, a guy that can go out there and make some plays, and there's no drop-off from the ones to twos. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what Jack can do. He's going to be more of a leader on this defense, in my opinion, just with his experience at the college level. But, yeah, athletic-wise, reminds me a little bit of Nick Figueroa, a guy that can get after the football, move around, both great in the run stop and in pass. I just don't know where he's going to play. Like I said, he was at the 3 technique in the spring game, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him. He's only 6'5", 245, what we have him right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe at a rush or a 5 technique, getting after the quarterback off the edge too on third down.
That's the biggest thing, and this is why I said at the top I'm a little bit intimidated to go to preview the defense. Is I feel like we just need to see so much more. Before we even have an idea of what it's going to look like. And I know anyone listening is like, great, I'll turn off the podcast. But like, it's one of those things where I feel like it's going to be so experimental at the start of fall camp and kind of getting a sense of, okay, now that Bear's here, what does that look like? Who does he play well with? Like, I just feel like there's so many question marks.
Yeah, and that's a great point, is what group, what unit plays well together. And it may not even be, you could have 2 dominant guys on the field, but if they both want to be a shade or a 3 technique and they're trying to move around, it may not work well like that. You may have to have separate personnel groupings, which defenses do, and I know Coach Riley and Coach Grinch will have that. You will have multiple personnel groupings when you want to have a 3rd and short, when you want to send out your goal line defense, your 3rd and long, when you know you need to have a little bit more pass rush instead of run stopping. So, yeah, that's going to be something to look at, but that's a disclaimer. We're not supposed to know, right? The spring ball, going through spring camp, doing all that stuff is to try guys at different positions, to move guys around, and we'll get to him in a minute, but Corey Foreman, guys like that, taking them from rush edge, putting them to interior a little bit, or playing that 5 technique, trying different things out, so when you get to fall camp, you have an understanding of what guys excel at, and then when you go into a season, there's no more question marks.
Now, when it comes to, like, finding out Bears play style and what we just talked about, how much is, player run practices, obviously the coaches aren't there. How much is like maybe what the players are self-reporting? Does that give the coaches any information coming into fall camp, or do you need to put on the pads and actually get a sense of things?
Yeah, I think the latter's true. I think you need to put on the pads.
Especially with the defensive line.
And D-line, O-line. Again, the player run practices are important. I'm being a little biased here. I was a quarterback, but I think it's more important for skill position guys. Obviously O-line, D-line, when you're just in jersey, not even helmets, not even spider, which are the underneath pads, the little soft pads you wear when you don't have the full shoulder pads on. It's tough to really gauge how a guy's going to be on the field when you put the pads on, the helmets, everything, being able to go. There's also different things involved. No one's cutting out there. You're not, you're not A-B blocking, tag team blocking up to the linebacker. You're just kind of, taking your first couple steps fitting into the lineman or defense, whatever it is. And then just kind of understanding the playbook. But yeah, I think it's more important when they put the pads on, and that's where Bear excels. That's where Keon excels, when they are able to show that physicality, get out there and go head up against Dietich, go head up against Monheim, get to go one-on-one in practice with full pads. That's when you can see, okay, who's going to be dominant on game day.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the one-on-ones.
I can't wait for one-on-one. 9-on-7 and one-on-ones. Although I didn't get to be a part of it a whole lot with the O-line, D-line, is one of my favorite things to watch.
I love watching the one-on-ones.
And for those of you who don't know, 9-on-7 is the 7-on-7 version, but for linemen, right? right? There's no receivers, there's no skill players out there. It's just besides the running back, but it's 9 offensive guys, 7 defensive guys, and when you have 9, it seems unfair. But you have a tight end, a running back. Those are the added spots. But it's our best versus your best, going all run plays, and
it looks painful.
But when I was a freshman, they would send, obviously Barkley would be down there doing the 7-on-7, doing the 1-on-1s with the receivers. They would send me, they'd send Whittick, some of the other guys. We'd go down and do 9-on-7. Loved it. There's nothing like that first 2 days of practice, listening to those pads popping, guys getting after it, unleashing a whole summer of build up, getting ready to go. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch those first couple of days.
The wild part is for 1-on-1s, it's a equipment manager standing in for the quarterback spot.
One of the yellow shirts.
Those 4 guys.
And okay, funny story. We're getting a little off track here, but we would have the equipment managers do that. And Coach Ogeron was a D-line coach when I first got there.
Yeah.
And these poor guys, I mean, and they had a couple guys out there that were maybe 5'6", $120, soaking wet.
Wearing no pads. Nothing, getting their feet stepped on, wearing track shoes or just running shoes. And the O-line, D-line, you'd have Khalid Holmes going against Antoine Woods or some of these guys, Nick Perry out there going against Red Ellison. And these poor guys had to stand there. And as soon as they moved, try to get out of the way, Coach O, quit moving, because he wanted the defense to win. Yeah.
So if you as an equipment guy tried to move out of the way, Coach O was on you. So
you're not a mobile quarterback.
That took me back to a little flashback there. But yeah, I can't wait for the 1-on-1s, 9-on-7. That's going to be so important too. Kind of getting back on track here is we need to be able to stop the run. And most importantly, we need to be able to tackle this year. And that needs to start up front.
Yeah.
We did a great job outside of Thule. We did a great job of getting to the quarterback, just not finishing the play. And that's something that's so important at today's college football is that you're going to have athletic quarterbacks. You're going to have maybe not quite Caleb Williams, but versions of that can move, that can elude, get out of the rush. You're going to have these faster running backs that can make guys miss. You have to be so fundamentally sound when it comes to tackling. We can't have missed tackles like we did last year, and that starts up front with these guys.
As I mentioned, we had a lot of questions, so I'm going to dive into some of those related to the defensive line. Rob had a really interesting question. He said Grinch's defense generally relied on a lot of stunting up front with an emphasis of quickness along the defensive line. With bigger bodies available now, do you expect that philosophy to change at all? The run fits last year let a lot to be desired.
Yeah, and I think part of that, and again, I'm not in there with Coach Grinch. I'm an offensive guy. This is just me playing football for a long time, seeing some of the stuff that I saw watching film from last year is I think we relied a little bit on the stunts because we didn't have enough guys that could just pin their ears back and get after the football, or we didn't have enough guys that could be physical enough to block those holes, to make the running back have to bounce it outside, where Gentry or Shane Lee could scrape off and make the tackle. So I think we relied a lot on stunting, trying to create advantages that way, confusing the offensive line. But in my opinion, I think Coach Grinch's MO is, hey, let's be a speed defense like he claims that they are. Let's get 4 or 5 guys up front that are physical, that are fast, that are athletic, that can pin their ears back and just go straight ahead and win their one-on-one matchups. Yeah, so I would be surprised to see a ton of stunning this year. A lot of guys move around. And when they say stunning, for those who don't know, it means if you have the 3 technique, the 5 technique, doing a twist, right? One guy going underneath, taking out the guard, hoping the tackle goes with them, and then scraping off the outside. But the problem with that is you're susceptible to leaving gaps open, right? If you scrape out this way and they block down, then no one's in that 3 technique. If you get caught up when you're trying to twist, there's no one to stop that A or B gap in the run game. So I think we need to be a lot more heavy this year on what we pride ourselves on, being a speed defense, is pinning our ears back. Every guy has their own gap. Let's go straight ahead, be physical, and win your one-on-ones.
No, I just had to say, this is the first EA we're doing video moment because you just did all
I got to explain.
You did all your Cody hand motions that you normally do.
No one sees.
Yes, but now people can actually see what you mean in your explanations.
Well, it's tough too sometimes if you know, and it's no offense, not everybody is. You love watching football, but if you don't really know the X's and O's or you've never played before, you could hear stunt and think, okay, what is stunt? That could mean a handful of things. Yeah. Now I can explain it a little better, right? You get a stunt. We need to get our whiteboard up though, so I can start drawing. We had a couple comments on that. I'm excited for that. So stay tuned. That'll be throughout the season. I'll be able to do some breakdowns with the whiteboard up.
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
We had multiple questions about Bear, obviously. Tamron said, after watching Bear at Georgia, it seems wild that he was only an honorable mention Pac-12 teamer. How much do you think he will contribute? And then Eric wanted to know, do you think Bear can step in and have a Thule type impact immediately?
First off, don't get me started because I saw some of those preseason Pac-12.
Yes.
Offensively, more importantly, I was a little frustrated. Didn't even see Taj, I don't think, up there. Didn't see Mario, who in my opinion is one of the better receivers in the Pac-12. Didn't see any of those guys, but I'm getting a little carried away. I was a little frustrated with that, but that's why it's preseason. It doesn't matter. What matters is what happens throughout the season and then the awards at the end of the year. But yeah, I mean, it's surprising, but I think that's based mainly off the fact that he didn't play a whole lot in 2022. Like I said, only a couple tackles, got very limited playing time at Georgia. That defense is obviously stacked. You've got to earn your right to play there. But I think there's a lot of question marks still about Bear. Yes, the hype is all there. The size, the power, everything that you want in a defensive lineman is there. But I think he's still yet to prove himself. And I think that's why he came to USC, to be able to make immediate impact, to get a lot more playing time, and help this defense take it to the next level and be one of the better defenses in the country.
Now, the final questions we have from Twitter are prediction ones. Manny and Chris both wanted to know who we think will have the most sacks among the D-line at the end of the season.
I mean, we haven't got to the Russian yet. I'm big on Anthony Lucas. I think, again, another guy that hasn't got a whole lot of time to prove himself, and we'll do a little bit of breakdown on the edge rushers next. But, yeah, I think Anthony Lucas. But if we're going just interior, I think Jack Sullivan fits that role a little bit better. Now, I think tackles for loss, stopping the run game, Keon Bars, Bear Alexander could go back and forth. But I think for sacks-wise, in the interior defensive line, if you want to call Jack interior, I think he's going to be up there. I just think he's got a little bit more movement and athletic ability to him, a guy that's capable to move around a little bit more. Not as big and stout and physical as Bear and Keon. But, yeah, and then as well, someone else that we didn't talk about is Tyrone Talini. He's another guy that came out last year. I think he was third on the team, with 5 sacks last year behind Nick and Thule. So he's another guy playing on that quote-unquote interior defensive line that can have an effect and have an impact and be able to get after the quarterback.
Alrighty, any other thoughts about the interior defensive line before we go to edge rushers?
No, I think we got everybody talked a little bit, and I'm excited. I'm pumped. I can't wait to see some of these new faces and not trying to be heavy on the transfer guys. Obviously, Solomon, Stanley, guys that are already here, some of the freshmen, Sam Green. Sam Green had a couple good plays in the spring game. But overall, it's just so many new faces that it gives you optimism. Like, okay, some of the guys left. Obviously, we lost some guys up front that are going to impact us heavily, but we brought some great players, guys that could be real playmakers on this defensive line end. So I'm excited. This whole group as a whole, I think, is going to be completely different than what we saw last year.
Alrighty, well, if you listened to last week's episode, we had kind of a bridge between wide receivers and tight ends with Deuce Robinson, just because we weren't sure where he was going to play. And we kind of have that again in this episode, and that's with Corey Foreman. Yeah. Now, if you remember in spring, they kind of did a trial or experiment, if you will, with Corey. They moved him to the interior defensive line. So if we wanted to, we probably could have included him in the last segment, but we don't know where he's going to be next season. He did play at edge last season. He had that infamous interception at the UCLA game. So where do we expect Corey? I'm just going to start with Corey in general because he's kind of a tweener right now. We don't know if that was something in spring that he's going to stick with, being in the interior defensive line, working with Sean Nua, or if he's going to go back to Roy Manning in that kind of outside linebacker, edge rusher role. Yeah,
I think that's a big question for a lot of Trojan fans is where's Corey going to play? You know, again, last year played a lot of edge rush, and that's fair not to really put him anywhere right now because, like I said, and it sounds repetitive, but spring ball is the time to try guys out at different positions, allow them to move around a little bit. What works well, it could have been, like we said, trial and error. We could have tried him out at going with Coach Nua, playing a little bit of the 5 technique, playing a little interior. Okay, it didn't work. Let's put him back to his natural position at rush, what he's been the last couple of years. But overall, I'm ready for Corey to take that next step. I think a lot of Trojan fans are as well. He has the capability to do it. He's built that confidence from last season, like you said, the huge pick he had in the UCLA game. Whether that was, I know there was some controversy whether he was supposed to be there or not, however it played out, but that's just got to help him a lot mentally to know, okay, I can make big-time impact plays when the lights are big, when it's an important game, to win the Pac-12, to move on to playing against 2 ranked opponents, primetime TV, and for him to step up in that environment on the road at the Rose Bowl and to make that big play to ultimately win the game for the Trojans had to do, just a ton for his confidence, and it's time for him to build off of that, right? Yeah. Trojan fans have been waiting to see Corey, and it's not really take that next step. It's more so just be consistent. Be a consistent playmaker week in and week out. And I'm full on for excited for Corey to see what he can do next year. I think he's going to be an impact or a big impact for this defense. It's just going to come down to can he do it week in and week out. Yeah, and if you remember, at the start of spring, Lincoln Riley was very high on the work Corey Foreman had done
in the offseason. And so how did this offseason go? Did he continue the work that he put in this spring? I'm really curious to see like the Corey check-in, if you will, once we start fall camp.
And I'll tell you what, you'll know right away. When we would get back, you would know. And obviously the players know better than we do with the player ran practices. But when I didn't spend a ton of time with defensive guys, whether it be the DBs, the D linemen, you will know right away the first couple of practices who's hands on their knees tired, who's bending over, who's not ready to go, who's not mentally locked in, who didn't come prepared, who treated summer more as a vacation rather than it did extra time to get ready for fall camp. But yeah, I mean, with how much work that he's put in and what we've seen in his progression through the last couple of months and last year, I think he's gonna be one of those guys that shows up and it's ready to go.
Now going over more of the edge rushers, Anthony Lucas, who you mentioned earlier, Solomon Tulialapupu, he's a guy who also was moved to edge, and that just made sense to me in my mind. And Lincoln Riley kind of explained, like, he's a guy who is just a bull rusher, like you just put him and he goes, so that makes sense. And then Jameel Muhammad, who, if you've been listening to the podcast, especially in the spring, he was a guy who I kind of tagged as like,
Keely's a big fan of,
look out for Jameel. So I'm curious if that,
rightfully so,
if that continues. And then Romello Height, very curious to see where he is in his journey, his health journey. If you remember last year, he was out pretty early in the season due to a shoulder injury. So where is he health-wise? And then some younger guys in Devin Thompson and Braylon Shelby, who is a incoming freshman.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I'll start with Solomon. I mean, he started in the spring game. Anthony Lucas did as well. But Solo, I think this is, again, another guy who, redshirt senior, who's been here, a physical presence, didn't do a ton last year, only 10 tackles, 2.5 sacks, but he really stepped up in the spring game, in my opinion. And not only just the spring game, but the spring as a whole. It felt like the coaching staff, and Lincoln Riley mentioned it, put a little bit more responsibility on his shoulders, gave him a little bit more of an opportunity to prove himself. And in my opinion, he took full advantage of that. A guy that I think has a real opportunity to push for a starting spot at this edge position. A guy I'm excited about to watch. I haven't seen a whole lot of him. Like I said, only 10 tackles and 2.5 sacks last year. Got to watch that one practice up close and personal after pro day.
Yeah.
What was just very impressed was the way he moved, his leadership ability, understanding the defense, always being in the right spot. So a guy I'm excited about to see going forward. Another guy who started in the spring game. And again, outside of Bear Alexander, obviously hasn't been here, a big question mark for me on that front seven, if you will, Anthony Lucas. For those of you who've been listening to this podcast for a while, I'm very high on him. He's also wearing number 6 now, so
wow, I
I'm
didn't
a little
even put that
biased.
together.
Yeah, I watched the spring game again last night wearing number 6. But yeah, I mean, he did not play a lot in 2022 at A&M. Only recorded 10 tackles that year. So there's still a lot of question marks about him. Right?
Yeah.
They still don't know what type of player he can be, but regarded as one of the best brush edge defensive linemen coming out of high school a couple years ago. So you just don't know what to expect. 4-star player coming out of Arizona, number 1 player in the state. Very, very impressed by his high school film. I thought he was, in my opinion, could play both, like I said, outside, inside, move around. Now, at college level, it's a little different than high school. I think he's going to be a stand-up rush in when it's all said and done for USC. But, yeah, someone that I am keeping an eye on to hopefully fill in for that Thule role, to be a guy that's impacted not only on first and second down, but when it's third and got to have it, and you know the offense is going to pass. I would love to see Coach Grinch give Anthony some of those opportunities to be one-on-one with a tackle, be one-on-one outside against a running back, maybe slide the D-line, allow him to get some one-on-one pass rushes, and using his size and his athletics. Let me start that over. Sorry.
You're fine.
I was talking fast with Grayson, so that's going to be a hard cut, huh?
Were you on a one shot for him? Okay, go to 2 shot. Okay, and then
I'm going to go to using his size and athleticism.
Okay.
And using his size and athleticism to create havoc in the backfield.
You know, sometimes just being around the athletic department, you just hear things in passing. And apparently, Anthony Lucas is a weight room junkie. And has been this offseason. So that's something that I'm curious to look for as well. So he has a good rep in the weight room.
I'll tell you, if there's one person that I trust this football team with outside of Lincoln Riley, it's Coach Wiley.
Right,
What he's done physicality-wise, and this is going back to the spring when we got to watch the practice in person, what he's done with this football team, and just watching some of the Instagram videos or the Twitter videos of the guys working down there, it's awesome to see. I'm so excited for them to get a full year now with Coach Wiley and his staff and just see the gains and the physicality that they can add going into this season.
Now, as far as Solo, we had a question from Eddie who said, how many sacks will Solo have, 12 or 18?
Ooh.
I don't even know how he decided between 12 or 18. Don't know if there's an inside joke there, but if we had to guess.
Yeah, 12 would be unbelievable. 18 would be up there and maybe record-setting numbers right there. But I like I said, I just said a couple of minutes ago, I think Solo's impact this year, and I think the coaches have put a lot more responsibility on his shoulders and understand the type of player he is. I would love to see him, I don't know, 12 or 18, if that's attainable, if so, great. But I would love to see him up near double digits. I think 10 is very, very possible for him, especially if he carries over what he did in the spring game and transitions that into fall camp and then moving forward into season. I absolutely think he can be a dominant pass rusher, not only in this conference, but in all of college football.
And the thing is like Solo's been working so hard his entire Trojan career to be healthy. You just want him to go out with a bang this season.
And I'm taking this is a guy I'm rooting for personally.
Yeah, of course.
And it might be a little high. I might be setting the bar a little high for him, but he's someone that I know that can put in the work ethic, put in the time, put in the hours to attain those goals. So I'm expecting big things from Solo this year.
Romello Height, what are you expecting from him? You know, I'm always wary when it comes to guys coming off of season-ending injuries that happen early in the season. Should my expectations be adjusted, if you will?
That's a tough one for me because I've only been around the team now for a year. I haven't seen a ton of Romello. I got to see a very small sample size of him last year.
We all did.
and I haven't seen a ton of what he can do. I know the coaching staff is very high on him. I know he got some opportunities. I think he was wearing the yellow jersey this spring when we went to practice, right? Just not full physical yet. Could still.
Yeah, he was kind of just in the mix.
Kind of thud tempo, moving around, getting back into football movements, getting comfortable coming back from that injury. But I'll tell you one thing. I know he's going to be hungry. I know he's going to have a lot to prove. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder. And he's a guy that knows, hey, we need to have an impact with Thule leaving. Why not me step up and be able to make some plays and you know, someone that's like, hey, you might have forgot about me a little bit last year. Let me reintroduce myself and come out and make an impact this year. So I'm excited to see what he can do. Someone that I'm going to keep a close eye on throughout fall camp, and hopefully he's up there running with the ones early on and has a chance to make an impact.
Alrighty. Any more edge rusher thoughts?
No, the only other guy besides the young guys, obviously Braylon and Devin, Jamil Muhammad. You know, just real quick. I know, again, Keely was very. I thought
I covered it. I said he was my guy.
You did, but I got to give him some love. He's a former quarterback, transitioned to defense.
True.
So I know he understands the game.
Heart.
Yeah, and he looks so comfortable. I think I texted you throughout the spring game, or we were on stage doing the Trojan tailgate, and you walked over the Trojans live, and I just said, Jamil looks really good. Like he looks comfortable, and then going back and watching the TV copy, smart, a great read and react player, and that's so important at the college level to be able to read and react, to know what's going on, to dissect what the offense is doing, because yes, you can be athletic, you can be physical, you can have all the speed in the world, but if you can't understand what the offense is doing in front of you and be able to read a play, you're going to be a step late. And when you get to high level college football and you're a step late, you're done. You know, you're dead in the water, you can't do anything. So I'm very excited to watch him. Again, came from Georgia Southern. Played well over there, had 44 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. But yeah, I think a little bit undersized, 6'1", only 220. I'm sure he's put on a little bit weight since the spring. But yeah, someone that I'm going to keep an eye on and I think has an opportunity to be with the ones when season starts as well.
Well, that's what was so fascinating about him was because when we first got to talk to him, when he got to campus, he said the first person he clicked with was Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
Because he went over the offense with him. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, wow.
But that's so important. I think I played, and this is getting a little off topic here, but I played my rookie year in Cleveland as a quarterback. My number one receiver was Terrell Pryor, who played at Ohio State. And the best thing about working with Terrell, still a good friend of mine, awesome guy, but working with Terrell was that I would throw a route or I would do something. And receivers are smart. Obviously, Nelson Aguilar was awesome at understanding playbooks, understanding defense. But when you learn a playbook as a quarterback and you have to understand not only what all 10 other guys on offense are doing, but what 11 guys are doing on defense, there's a different aspect to learning football, to understanding football. And I'm not saying other positions don't do that or other positions aren't smart. But when Terrell would come over, he'd say, hey, Cody, you threw that a little early. He was in 2, or it was cloud coverage, or it was man-to-man with inside leverage. Things that it's tough to see as a quarterback that you would love every receiver to come back and say to you.
Gotcha.
So I think, Jamil obviously being a former quarterback is going to help him tremendously when it comes to reading, reacting to opposing offenses.
I'm sure. Alrighty. Inside linebackers, which is an interesting one to me.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
Why is it tough for you?
Go ahead. What are you going to say? What was your interesting?
I just think that it's kind of I feel like it's evolved a lot.
Okay, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's almost become Mason Cobb is the new Shane Lee in my mind a little bit. And I know I'm not trying to be controversial here, but I feel like he really made a splash this spring.
Yeah, absolutely. He did, and rightfully so. I'll start with Shane Lee, though, first.
Okay, should I just run down the position group?
Yeah, go ahead. Run down the list, and then. But I get where you're going with this. This is going to be possibly a lengthy one, but I know where you're going. It's gonna be a difficult one to figure out what's gonna happen.
Yes.
But yeah, go ahead,
Yes.
run through it first.
Shane Lee, obviously, Eric Gentry, Mason Cobb, Rajon Davis, and Tackett Curtis.
Yeah.
So take it away.
Yeah, I think obviously starting out, Tackett Curtis. We'll go there first, actually, with the true freshman. We've talked
He's
a
an
lot
easy one
about
to
him.
talk about.
Yeah, well, before we get in kind of the meat and potatoes, as
Sure.
Keely says, of the linebacker group.
Say that?
You do say that a lot. So Tackett Curtis, in my opinion, everything is there to be a great football player, and I think one day he will be. I just think in the spring game, a lot of the notes I wrote down was high motor guy, flying around everything. We need a very physical player. He's just got to calm down a little bit, right? He's got to retain everybody. I know it's tough to say, and you don't want to say that about a linebacker, and I'm not putting him anywhere near that yet, but he reminds me a little bit of a Brian Cushing type. He just needs to play within himself a little bit, slow down, take a step, read, and like I was saying just now about Jamil Muhammad, be able to read and react. You don't need to go full speed all the time, and I know coaches love saying, if you're going to make a mistake, make it at full speed, right? Go out and hit somebody, but at college football level, especially as a true freshman, you've got to be able to read an offense, to understand that it's a little more complex than it was at the high school level. You just can't run around and be better than everybody and make plays nonstop. You've got to be able to understand, and especially going against Coach Riley's offense, with all the guard tackle pulls, with all the counter action. There's so many times when you see run fake, and then, okay, I'm going to bite now on it, and then it's actually pull, screen the other way, and you can get caught looking around and lost. But I think for Tackett, sky's the limit. I think he's going to be an amazing linebacker, amazing football player on this football team. I don't know if he's going to play this year or not. I think he'll get a little bit of playing time, but I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world if he does redshirt, can learn a little bit. But like I said, all the athletic abilities there. All the playmaking abilities there, the physicality, everything you want in a linebacker, he's just got to get used to that college-level speed, and that will just come with time, you know. And obviously, it was important for him to have that spring to now go into fall full speed and be able to understand all that.
I don't know if this is going to sound weird, but I feel like the most encouraging thing about Tackett, or at least what I saw on the field, was that he just has that like lack of fear that you
fear.
Want in an inside linebacker.
That's why I say Brian
just
Cushing.
Like,
remember the face paint? Fear me. That's who he reminds me of, and and got a long way to go to get up to Cush level. Obviously, Cush is one of the best USC linebackers, if not college linebackers of all time, and obviously went on the NFL to have a great career. But you've got to be able to calm down a little bit, slow that down, be able to play smart football, not just physical football. You got to be able to slow down and play smart football, and that'll just come with time, like I said. But sky's the limit for him. Whenever he gets his feet underneath him, he understands that college-level speed and how to read an offense and how to read and react and all that at high level. He's definitely going to be someone to keep your eye on and can be one of the better linebackers in all of college football. Another guy, too, before we jump into the kind of the primary three, Rajon Davis, kind of went a little bit under the radar last year, didn't get a whole lot of playing time, but looked good in the spring game. Had some flashes in the spring game. I wrote some notes down. Does a great job of being around the football when he was on the field, whether it was with the ones or twos or rotating with the threes at times. Did a great job of reading, reacting, understanding he's a junior now, so he's a little bit more of a savvy player, but a guy that can, if there is, knock on wood, injury or someone goes down or something happens, a guy that I think can step up and play good football and give the Trojans a little bit more depth at the linebacker position.
Yeah, and we saw good things from him in the Tulane game. I know that's
he got a little more
opportunity even further.
There,
but he's definitely a guy who I would want to see him take that next step. I think he's a guy that a lot of USC fans have been waiting to see him at least have his moment or try to get more in the rotation. And so now that Raylan Goforth has transferred out into Asivi Namora, it really is an opportunity for Rajon Davis to get many more reps this season.
Yeah, and he started off on a great foot in spring. I think the spring game, spring practice route as a whole was great for him to kind of, and just building some confidence, right? Understanding, okay, two guys are gone. Now I'm stepping up. Now I'm kind of the next rotational linebacker. I've got to be ready to go, and I think he did a good job of that. But now jumping forward.
So is this what makes it tricky for you, the next three guys we're going to talk about?
I don't know. And again, we can do this now because fall camp hasn't started, so we can kind of spitball here and jump around some scenarios. But I just don't know how it's going to shake out, especially with Eric Gentry being out with injury in spring ball. It made it easy to say, okay, put Mason Cobb, Shane Lee out there. Right? Yeah. Shane obviously was a captain last year, very good football player. I think he took huge strides toward the end of the season. Needs to work on tackling just a little bit. I think he gets caught kind of lunging a little bit at times, and that's nothing, no knock against him. I'm sure he'd be the first one to self-scout and say, hey, I need to be better this year. Eric Gentry, obviously one of the better linebackers in all of college football, if not only as athletic, but his size, what he does, wingspan, being able to move sideline to sideline was amazing. And then you have Mason Cobb, who was one of the leading tacklers in all of college football last year. I watched his game film last night against TCU. I was telling you earlier before we started.
State.
Yeah, when he was at Oklahoma State, 16 tackles. an amazing, I know I keep saying this and it's a common theme, but a read and react player. He is so good because he's not the biggest guy, right? He's only 6'1", 220.
Yeah.
I don't know if this weight's still the same. He's probably put a little bit more on with Coach Wiley, but he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he is a football genius. Like just the way he can die. And playing in the Big 12 too, you see a lot of similarities to the Pac-12, right? A heavy pass conference. You see a lot of misdirection, counteraction, shotgun run game. I think that's going to benefit him a ton now coming to play in the Pac-12. But my biggest question mark with these three is who plays where.
Yeah.
Are we going to leave Eric Gentry at middle linebacker and have Shane Lee and Mason Cobb fight to rotate? And now, obviously, base personnel, I assume they'd all be out there. But when we go nickel defense, where you bring in a Jalen Smith or you bring in guys, Max Williams, someone to play that nickel spot, what two linebackers are going to be out there? Is it going to be – because last year it was Eric Gentry and Shane Lee. Yeah. Now you add Mason Cobb, who's a high-level college football player, in my opinion, needs to be on the field. Are you going to move him to middle and let Eric play at that Sam or Will linebacker position and then bring Shane off the bench in nickel? Or are you going to take, it'd be tough for me to see Eric coming out of the game in passing situations just with his presence in the middle of the field, especially when we get too high cover two. We saw the Oregon State game, how many deflections, the interception he had, trying to throw the ball over the middle. He was just everywhere. And that was not just that game, but that's the one that jumps out. So I have no idea how this coaching staff, and again, like I said, with Gentry being out for the spring, we didn't even get an idea of what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it did allow Mason to steal some reps and get in there and get comfortable. So I think that was huge for him. But when all three are healthy, especially in nickel defense, who's going to be out there?
I know, and there's so many questions.
And I know it's a tough question. Yeah. I'm not putting you on the spot
No, but I was going to add to that. Like, first of all, you mentioned it, but there were so many injuries at inside linebacker last year that, like, we could sit here all day and be like, hey, what about this rotation, this rotation? It's like, okay, well, is everyone going to be healthy? This could go out the window in 2 seconds, which, knock on wood, it doesn't happen. But, at the same time, how healthy is Gentry? Do we even know at this point?
I have no idea.
And the crazy part, too, is, like, everyone said last year that obviously he hit the ground running, transferring from ASU in the summer, didn't have a lot of time to learn the inside linebacker position because that wasn't his native position at ASU, and then kind of thrown into the fire. And everyone was like, hey, this upcoming spring is going to be so great for him to slow down and actually have practice reps, et cetera, et cetera. And then he undergoes surgery and can't have those valuable reps. Granted, the mental reps hopefully were there. We don't know.
Which are just as important in my opinion.
Yeah, we haven't talked to him, so we'll see if that was helpful for him. But where is he in the progression of learning this defense and learning this position? I don't know either.
Yeah, and
you can say, like, oh, it's his first year, he was thrown into the fire, but this upcoming year, does he have that same type of leeway? You know?
No, you've got to be able to go, and that's tough too with the injury, like you said.
Yeah.
How healthy is he going to be 100% on day one of fall camp going into it to where he can hit the ground running again? But not only now, and that's tough to do.
And you're making cuts. You're doing
sideline to sideline. That size that he has.
I was doing the Cody hand. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. cut side to side. But and I'd be interested to know, fans at home too, Trojan, like how this rotation you think is going to play out, because we're just spitballing here. We're giving our best opinions, but I have no idea. It'd be different if Mason Cobb was maybe an underclassman guy coming in, had a prove-it year, could learn behind Eric and Shane. But Mason is a dominant college football player, and he's already proven himself at a high level Division I program at Oklahoma State to go out and have 96 tackles in 1 year, which is insane for a middle linebacker. That's awesome to see. But now, when he comes over to USC, you have two dominant linebackers in Shane Lee and Eric Gentry, all upperclassmen now, Eric Gentry being a junior, and then Cobb and Lee are both seniors. I have no idea how this rotation is going to play out. I really don't.
Yeah.
And we're going to see a lot more nickel than we do base. So which two are going to be the most guys that are out there on the field at the same time? Kind of goes back to the D-line, too. I'm sure there'll be different packages based on who we're playing. I think, playing against Stanford, I wouldn't be surprised to see more Cobb Lee, just because a little bit more physical, smaller guys can go up there and fit in the run game. Stanford's not a huge passing team, but then when it's, a team that's going to throw the ball a lot, I wouldn't be surprised to see Gentry Cobb or maybe Gentry Lee, things like that. But it's tough because Eric Gentry's too good to not have on the field. Yeah. But you could say the same about Lee and Cobb. So at the end of the day, it's a good problem to have, though. The fact that we have three high-caliber linebackers that can all transfer guys, too. We have Alabama, Arizona State, and Oklahoma State. So that just shows you what the transfer portal is doing for USC. But all high-caliber players that have transferred over, it's a good problem to have at the end of the day. It's going to be tough for them to figure out on defense who's going to be out there, who's going to be starting, how's this rotation going to work.
Now, you mentioned earlier the evolution of the defensive line, how they maybe will do less stunting. Does that change how the inside linebackers, how they perform going forward?
Yeah. I mean, it's all so everything on defense. Yes, you do stunting, you twist, you do all these different things. Whatever you want to call it. Everybody's still responsible for a gap. At the end of the play, at the end of the stunt, at the end of the mesh, whatever you're doing, the blitz, you are all responsible for a gap. Sometimes the safety does fill up. They'll be a part of that in the run game as well, especially when you have one high and bring a safety into the box, or cover 4 when you want the safeties a little bit more involved in the run game. But at the end of the day, you're all responsible for a gap. It's just how fast can you get there, right? How effective can we be? I would like to see our linebackers, same thing. I don't want to see a Mike Sam twist a whole lot. I don't want to see guys getting out of their gap coming downhill. Now, you have to do that. You want to mix it up. You don't want to just run straight ahead every single time, but you want to have the playmakers on defense to be able to win one-on-ones over and over throughout the game, to where the offensive line, the running backs coming off the field like, coach, I need some help. I need a running back chip. I need a combo block on this guy. I can't stop him. I need 2 guys to come down and block Bear, or Mason Cobb coming up the middle, and the opposing running back's like, hey, I need some help here. I need the D-line or the O-line to help me out. Yes, that's the type of dominant defense you want to have. Again, yes, you will mix up some of the stunt stuff up front, but I'd like to see a lot more pin our ears back, get after the football, and go and win your one-on-ones.
We got a question from, we didn't get the name. I believe that's a mistake. Sorry about that. But they were asking, what is Eric Gentry's natural position in this defense?
I don't know. I mean, Mike linebacker, based off last year, is his
Sure.
natural position, but
Natural.
natural. You
Quote,
don't,
unquote.
and I'm not saying that he can't do it. Obviously, we saw he was one of the better
No,
linebackers
yeah.
in all of college football. You just don't see a 6'6", 205-pound, which I see you put a question mark there on his weight. I know he
Good
said
point.
himself on Twitter, I've put on 20 pounds, stop all that talk. So we'll give him 225. But you just don't see a 6'6" linebacker
Yeah.
in the middle of the field, right? You might see a rush edge that's 6'6". You might see a stand-up Sam linebacker that plays on the end of the line and base at 6'6", but you just don't see a 6'6" linebacker with his athleticism playing in the middle of a defense. So I don't know natural position. I'm not sure, but just based off of last year, you'd have to say middle. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him playing a little bit of a stand, edge rush, not playing edge rush, but being an outside linebacker walked up on the ball, or playing sideline to sideline, maybe towards the boundary a little bit. I don't know. I just don't know. But yeah, that's tough. He's a unicorn, right?
Yeah.
He's one of those unique guys that don't come around often.
I think it's the general question when it comes to a guy like Eric Gentry.
Yeah. And
where do you put him?
A step forward from there, I know I'm thinking ahead, but where's he going to play in the NFL?
Oh, yeah.
Would they keep him at middle linebacker there as well? Would he,
No idea.
But it does give you a ton of possibilities and packages where you can use him and his size and his speed at linebacker in different situations. So nonetheless, it's a good problem to have.
Mm-hmm. Already inside linebackers. I mean, the whole thing, the theme was, we don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
No, that's another position group. We keep saying about every position group. I'm just excited for fall camp. I can't wait for them to get back out there because spring's different. I said it last episode, but it's spring. It's what it is.
Yeah.
It's almost like OTAs in the NFL. Off-season football, you're not really working towards anything. When fall camp hits, after those first 2 weeks, you go, your best against our best, iron sharpens iron. You're preparing for a football game. And then the season's right around the corner.
Yeah.
And, oh, by the way, we've got a week 0 game on August 26th.
Yeah.
So we're, a little over a month and 5 days away, 6 days away. So
37 days away.
yeah, we're almost
my
there.
goodness.
So it's time to go. But yeah, fall camp's going to be awesome. I can't wait for it to start.
Yeah, spring, you always have you have that feeling in the back of your head, like, summer's still around the corner.
Yeah.
There's no urgency.
Yeah, you still have a full almost off season to go before you get to fall camp. But I'm probably going to say it again. This next group we're getting to here, and this will probably be the most important one we talk about. But I can't wait for fall camp to start.
Okay.
To see this group battle.
Corners.
Yeah.
Let's run through the names on the roster. Damani Jackson, Sierra Wright, Jacoby Covington, Christian Roland Wallace, Fabian Ross, Malachi Crawford, and Prophet Brown. I guess the biggest question off the bat, who makes up for Mekhi Blackman?
Yeah, I would say, and obviously we didn't get to see him, so I'm kind of going out on a limb here a little bit, but we didn't get to see him a ton in spring, but in my opinion, it has to be Christian Roland Wallace. Obviously, the guy has a ton of playing experience, transferred from Arizona, played well. I watched the game where he played against USC a couple years ago, going against Drake London, who was one of the, if not the best, one of the best wide receivers in all in college football, played him well. It was one of those matchups where Drake would win one, Christian would win one. They'd go back and forth. That's what you want to see in a cornerback one like Mekhi last year, follow around the opposing team's number one receiver and be able to have those back and forth wars. Don't make it easy on them. Don't let them come out and put out 100+ yards every game and a couple touchdowns. So just with his production at Arizona, was a captain over there. I think 3-year starter, started 37 games for Arizona. Ton of playing experience, had 57 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 6 pass defenses. I mean, he just has to be a guy that is going to be cornerback one for the Trojans. And I say that, I sound a little hesitant just because we haven't seen him yet in Cardinal and Gold. Obviously, we didn't see a ton of him in the spring.
He was injured.
If at all, right? I don't think...
He was injured for like the majority of spring. What's funny is like I usually, when I'm watching team period, I like go towards the back of the defensive bench, if you will.
Yeah.
And like him and I always would kind of stand near each other. So I would remember like he's been injured for a while. He came back in like the later third of camp. So, but he didn't really get much play time. Long-winded answer. Yes, he was injured.
And I correct. He was a captain 1 year, his last year in 2022, but a 3-year starter in Arizona. But still a very good football player who knows how to be successful at high level D1 college football program. Played in the Pac-12, a pass-heavy offense, so he's going to be used to the opponents that we face this year. So, yeah, I mean, it's tough to pick him over guys that are here because I would love to see that be Sierra Wright. I'd love to see it be Damani Jackson, Jacoby Covington, some of those guys take that next step. But if you had to ask me right now, just based off of what they've produced throughout their career, I'd have to go with Christian Roland-Wallace as kind of filling in that Mekhi spot, which are big shoes to fill, by the way. Mekhi was, if not the best man-to-man corners in all college football, and did not get the respect he deserved, and I'll stand on that hill for a long time, and I told him that.
I know, at Pro Day, we were the Mekhi Blackman fan club.
When I watched his breakdown on film week in and week out, and that was the frustrating part, I'm sure, for him was, USC's defense kept getting a lot of heat, rightfully so, giving up big plays, giving up a ton of passing yards to Cal, who wasn't a big passing football team, struggling, but the one shining star in the secondary, besides Kalen, obviously we'll get to the safeties, but when it came to coverage corners was Mekhi Blackman, and so had to give him his due diligence. I know he's not on the team anymore. That hurts a little bit, but to fill his shoes, I'm going with Christian Roland-Wallace, and hopefully we have 2 CB1s on the team. Hopefully there's 2 guys that are dominant, but starting out now before fall camp started, I'd have to go with Roland-Wallace.
Now, a guy I would keep my eye on solely because of Lincoln Riley's comments is Jacoby Covington. He's a guy who didn't get as much playing time as I think we expected last season when he first transferred in. And Alex Grinch actually made a comment about it towards the end of the season about how they expected a little bit more and how they wanted more from him off the field. And I think it finally clicked for him this past offseason, and Lincoln Riley said as much. So I'm curious if that has continued this offseason, if he's ready to go in fall camp, because he's a guy who I think they expected to, like I just said, contribute immediately. So that's someone who could, in my opinion, also make up for the loss of Mekhi.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the first thing that sticks out to me with Jacoby is his physical presence. 6'2", 200 pounds, a bigger guy. I remember when we got to that spring ball practice, and I keep bringing that up, but we went out there, I wasn't fully accustomed with the numbers yet. I didn't know if some guys changed in spring, and it was a little bit far away, and I'm like, who's that? And you're like, that's Jacoby. And I didn't realize in person how big he was as a corner. So that's something that's really important too, to have that physical dominance, to move as well as he did. Again, to get the praise he got from both Grinch and Lincoln Riley, I think he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. But the off-field stuff, that's something we've touched on before too on this podcast. You've just got to turn that on, right? That can't be a coach forcing you not to love football, because obviously everyone on this roster that's playing football loves football, but to take that next step, to spend a little bit extra time in film study. That's something I had to learn. When I was in high school, I figured out, okay, how do I gain an advantage in other areas? Because you're going to go to high school recruiting, you're going to go around to a bunch of camps, and the same at college. Guys can throw just as well as you. Guys can make all the same throws you can. Guys can throw farther than you. Guys can throw harder than you. Guys are a little more accurate. You've got to find a way in every aspect of the game, especially off the field, where I can create that advantage. So for me, it was my commitment to the work ethic. It was my commitment to film study. And I just think that's something the coaching staff wants a little bit more from Jacoby, because all the physical presence, the playmaking ability, we saw flashes of it last year playing opposite of Mekhi, just wasn't consistent enough, right? Just that CB2 spot, that rotation between Sierra, Damani, Jacoby, no one solidified that spot because the consistency wasn't there. Yeah.
Now, and you mentioned them, Sierra Wright, Damani Jackson. What are you expecting from those two this season?
Yeah, and for what it's worth, they were the 2 starting corners in the spring game. They had it was Sierra Wright on the right side corner, and there was Damani Jackson on the left. So I don't want to read into it too much, but those were the 2 corners that were out there to start off the spring game with the first unit. Yeah, starting with Damani, I think he still has, there's a ton of, it's kind of like the Corey Foreman type thing, right? Where highly recruit. I think he was a 5-star, right?
Yeah.
Coming out. Ton of upside to his game. For whatever reason, he just really hasn't turned it on yet or found that comfort level at USC at the college level. I think he has every opportunity to do that. I know the confidence is there. I saw him in the spring game. He was chirping a little bit, walking around, talking some trash at the practice we were at as well. But yeah, it's also a lot of pressure though too. All eyes are on him. When you're a 5-star guy coming in and you haven't produced yet, and you're going into your, I think, third year?
Sophomore.
Yeah, sophomore year. And you haven't really produced yet, a lot of people are going to be head scratching. Hey, so you got to block all that out. You got to come out, and he did it in the spring, but I want him to keep doing it in the fall. Come out and say, hey, there's a reason I'm here. I deserve to be here. There might be guys that are good. There might be guys I'm going against on offense, opposing teams, but I deserve to be on this field as well. And there's a reason that I was a 5-star recruit, and pretty much everybody in the country wanted me to come play for them. So, yeah, I think for him, it's just taking that next step, really building off of that confidence level. Same thing with Corey Foreman, like I said, just building that consistency and being able to be a solidified starting corner on this defense. But then the other guy that's pushing him for that spot, Sierra Wright. He got a ton of praise. I think he was the most talked about corner, in my opinion, from just reading the clips and the
he was
quick hits with Keely. Yeah. I missed those. We haven't seen those in a while.
Hey, they're coming back. They're coming back for Pac-12 Media Day on Friday.
There
so
we go. Quick hits with
Cody.
Keely. Be on the lookout for that on Twitter. But yeah, he was talked about a ton, and just some of the stuff that Coach Riley said about him. He's and this is from quote. He's been one of, to me, the breakout players this spring. And I think this was only week 1 or 2 into spring ball, making plays every day. His improvement, some of his playmaking ability that he's had has been substantial. That's what you want to see from a guy who is fighting for a starting spot at the corner position. Like we said, with the spot where Makai's leaving and there was really no one else that solidified any other starting spots at corner. It was like musical chairs out there. One week it was Sierra, 1 week Damani. Jacoby came in a little bit. Guys were rotating in and out. And I think most importantly of this quote that Lincoln said is, you can take the same player, the same call, the same scheme, the same technique and everything, and if he does all those things with confidence, the product can be 2 completely different things.
Yeah.
And that's straight from Lincoln Riley. I love that. That is so important to understand. And I think for the defense as a whole, not just Sierra, is that when you get comfortable in a second year under Grinch, when you get comfortable under the scheme, because I said it last year, and I didn't. And I know people were coming for me trying to defend the defense.
Said it too, yeah.
And Deion said it too. But it's so tough to learn a scheme on the fly, and especially not being a solidified starter, having to, hey, when am I going to get in? I don't know what I'm going to go in for. I can't really game plan because I don't know what plays I'll be in there for, what calls are going to be out there, what packages I'll be in. But your second year, when you really understand, and that's why in the NFL as well, they expect, hey, first year quarterback to second year, you've got to take that huge leap. Yeah. Once you understand and have everything, okay, I've got notes, I've got self-scout, I can watch myself at the college level in this scheme, now it's time to take that next step. And that's where we see guys either take that next step or fall off. And I think Sierra has already proven through the spring that he's going to be one of those guys that takes that next step.
Now, overall, something that came out of last season towards the end as well from Alex Grinch was that at times he didn't feel comfortable leaving guys on islands. Like, he didn't want to leave guys one-on-one. How do you make that next step as a position group?
Win on one-on-ones every day. And it starts with confidence, giving Coach Grinch the confidence, because obviously Coach Grinch is the defensive coordinator, but he's also a DB coach before, right? He
and Dante Williams as well.
And Dante Williams, but he understands safety, DBs, all of that. That's kind of where he keeps his eye on, and that's kind of his history a little bit, is you have to, and that goes along with his speed defense, not having to do a ton of stunts, being able to pin your ears back, send 5 or 6 guys on pressure, and play straight up man-to-man and not worry about the ball getting thrown over your head. You have to have guys that can win one-on-ones on defense at corner, or you can't do that, and you're going to see that hurt your front 7. You're going to have to play a little more zone where you give up bigger holes in the run game. You're going to have to maybe play out of your comfort zone, what Coach Grinch wants to do, because he doesn't have guys that fit the scheme of, hey, we can go out there, call man-to-man for a whole quarter. Let's let our guys go out there. Our best versus your best, and we can shut you guys down, and our pass rush can get after your quarterback, and it's going to be a long day for you, whoever we're playing on offense. But last year, that just outside of Makai, that no one really solidified that spot. So where you build that confidence, spring ball, obviously that's already checked, right? We've already had guys that are starting to flash in spring ball, but one-on-ones in fall camp, when it's those nighttime, I love that too. I know we're going back. Yes, the running back, O-line, one-on-ones, 9-on-7s were awesome, but I was more part of the DB wide receiver one-on-ones. But that's fun. Where it's iron sharpens iron. Your best versus our best. The Marquise Lee versus Nickel Roby-Coleman matchups. The Sua Cravens going against some of our slot receivers.
Sure.
Some of that stuff was awesome to see, and it was so much fun to be a part of that, be a quarterback, throw those guys. And then you knew, okay, these guys on defense are getting better. I can't make this throw that I could throw against Sierra last year. Caleb's going to say, I can't make that throw this year. He's going to be on top of that. He's playing more confident. He's more comfortable in this scheme. He believes in himself a little bit more. And that's the same for Damani, Jacoby, Christian, all the way down. But that's where you build that confidence for Coach Grinch to be able to call more man, is winning one-on-one against Mario, winning one-on-one against Brendan, Dorian, all these guys, Zachariah Brandt, shutting them down in one-on-one routes, so your coach knows, hey, when we go into game planning, let's call one-on-one and let our front seven get after the quarterback.
It's so odd to me how it's kind of almost like like which came first, chicken or the egg, like confidence, winning your one-on-one battles, like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's weird.
Well, that was for me too, and this is going back to my playing days a little bit here at USC, is I didn't get to go with the receivers right away. They'd send me down with the running backs, tight ends for one-on-ones, running backs, linebackers, and this is passing one-on-ones. Running backs, linebackers go one-on-one, tight end safeties would go one-on-one. I didn't get to go with the wide receivers. It would normally be Barkley, or me and Whittick would split a little bit. But where I earned that confidence, that's fun. I get the chills talking about it. That's funny that you say that, is I put so much focus into, okay, I know I'm going to get a ton of reps, right? When we would go live reps, 7-on-7, 11-on-11, Matt would get the bulk of those reps, right? So my time for me as a freshman, even my redshirt year, was how am I going to win this number 2 spot? How am I going to make an impact for myself one-on-ones? That's where you get the coach staff watching you. Although Kiff would be down there with Matt and the receivers and stuff, they would still go back as a staff after practice and watch those, and that's where I really excelled. So I think those practice reps, those one-on-ones are so important, and they hold so much weight on building that confidence, on allowing you to know I can play at this level. I can be a very effective player on this football team. So yeah, and that's most important in college football. If you can't cover man-to-man, or as a receiver, if you can't win in man-to-man, you're not going to play in college, let alone playing in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, one of the first things you've said on this podcast, if you're a wide receiver and you can't win one-on-one in the NFL, bye.
They tell you, if you can't win on a slant route and man-to-man in NFL, you will not play at this level. You have to be able to win press man-to-man slant. And it goes for all routes, but that's just what they would say when I got to Cleveland. That was kind of a common theme. If you can't win one-on-ones in basic one-on-ones at NFL or college level as well, you're not going to play. You have to be able to win your man-to-man matchups. Wow. And that goes the same for the defense. You have to be able, and you're not going to win every one, but being able to go 50-50, go back and forth with Brendan.
Make it competitive.
Make it competitive. Don't lose every single time. Go out there, make it 50-50. Make it 65-45 for you. Win some those days. So, yeah, that's going to be important to watch. I can't wait for that. The other 2 guys, though, before we move on, Malachi Crawford, obviously a freshman, Fabian Ross, 3 guys, Prophet Brown. Don't know a whole lot about. I think those are guys who are going to have a chance to come in, compete. But, I think those guys that we just talked about are going to be 2 guys. 2 of those guys need to show up and really solidify cornerback 1, cornerback 2 spot this year.
Yeah. Saw some good things from Fabian Ross in practice at times.
Yeah.
Just curious to see how he builds on that, his consistency and whatnot. We got a couple of questions. Daniel said, can the defense have the same success this year as they did last year with turnovers?
Yeah, I hope so. I just hope that's not our only identity. I don't want to be a team that, and yes, you can live off of bend, don't break, but that can't be our identity anymore. We have to be a dominant defense to where there's no bend, right? There might be some games where we're bending a little bit. Yes, we want to have a ton of sacks. Yes, we want to create a ton of turnovers. That's absolutely a positive, something to pride yourself off of, but you can't live and die by that, because we did die a couple times last year when the turnovers weren't there and we were giving up big plays. Tulane game is a perfect example, right? We just needed 1 or 2 stops there late, and we couldn't create a turnover, and we also couldn't get a stop. And we were giving up explosive play after explosive play. Utah in the Pac-12 championship, Utah as well, playing at Utah. Those are the games that stick out. I want to see our defense, and I know Trojan fans remember from last year, our Oregon State defense. That defense that came out against Oregon State held them, I think, to 10 points or shut them down really the whole first half. Offense struggled, but I want to be able to have a defense that can come out if Caleb's a little bit off, if our offense isn't rolling as well, if there's some things going on to where we're not putting up 50, 60 points a game, we can still win a game based off of how our defense is playing.
And the unfortunate thing of having turnovers become your identity on defense is that if it's not happening in a game, you can press for it.
Yeah.
And you saw that in Tulane. I think there's one play, I just remember someone trying to strip the ball instead of making a tackle. And it's just like, you got to stick with the fundamentals and not force it if it's not happening.
I agree.
But in hindsight, there was so much made about the turnovers in the beginning of the season for USC's defense. Could we attribute that to anything now that we have a full look of the season, or was that just football being football?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I think it's just because of the recruits we have on defense, right? We got a lot of athletes on the defensive side of the ball. The biggest thing is especially when you have high-level recruits, especially in the secondary with the turnovers, you have guys that played receiver and DB in high school, right? Guys that have great ball skills, guys that can attack the football. And we always make the joke, if all DBs were wannabe receivers that couldn't catch. So that's why they went and played defense. But and it's an offensive joke. And obviously it's just something going back and forth with defensive guys. But yeah, I think the athletes that we have on defense were a big part of that. And the turnovers, for me, are something I think they're going to be there naturally. Kind of what you said. Let it happen organically. Don't force it. Don't try to rip the ball out like you said against Tulane. Don't dive for an interception if you're going to give up a catch in a big play. Secure the tackle and then be patient, right? Be patient when the play's there. Yeah. Then we go for the sack fumble, then we go for the interception. Then we take a chance on a ball that's a 50-50 ball. Don't force those, because if you don't have a defense that can hold the opposing offense under even 300, 400 yards a game, you're going to give up those big plays. And if the turnovers aren't there, you're going to have a tough time winning football games. Yeah. Just luckily last year for us, we had Caleb Williams. We had such a high-powered offense where we could go in shootouts and come out and win. But when you have a game where the offense is off, I want to see us take that next step and our defense go out there and win the game by themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, Oregon State, but consistently.
Yeah, and one more thing, too, before we move on is if you go back and look, and this was a big thing that was preached when I was here at USC, teams are, and you can go back and look on stats, teams that are at the high, top of the rankings at the end of the year, normally a big part of that is turnover margin. So I don't want to say that's not something to be proud of and that's something that's important. You definitely want to protect the football on offense and create turnovers on defense. A lot of the top 5, top 10 teams every year in and year out, are up at the high end of the leaderboard when it comes to turnover margin. So, yes, that's important. You just can't live and die by that.
Yeah, no, great point. And if we're going off the quote-unquote Oregon State model, that game also had 4 interceptions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So a lot of turnovers, but
a healthy mix.
There weren't big plays. Yeah, that's the defense I want to see this year.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Alrighty, final position group for this defensive preview. It's the safeties. The first guy on the list is the guy we know who's locking down one of the starting spots. It's Kalen Bullock, who's returning for his junior season. There's also Bryson Shaw, Jalen Smith, Max Williams, Zion Branch, Anthony Beavers Jr., Zamarian Gordon, and Christian Pierce. So it's an interesting bunch, especially because I included Nichols in there as well with Jalen Smith and Max Williams. And what do you do with Max Williams? Do you play him at nickel? Do you let Jalen take that role? There's a lot of questions I have here, Cody, so I'm just going to throw it to you.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, like you said, Kalen Bullock, in my opinion, the best safety in all in college football. I may be a little biased, but his tape and his ability on the field backs that up. It speaks for itself. So, yeah, that spot's already locked in. Obviously, expect another huge year from him. I think he's going to take that next step. I don't know if it'll be our last one we get of Kalen Bullock.
That's one of the questions I had for you.
I saw you had one of those, so we'll see. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but for what it's worth, again, starting safeties in the spring game, Bryson Shaw, Kalen Bullock. Starting nickel was Jalen Smith. I know some people might have thought that was going to be Max Williams. I think that position battle will continue to go on throughout the fall, but those were the 3 starters when we were in nickel, was Kalen and Bryson in the back end and then Jalen at that nickel spot. But yeah, I don't know. I think based off of what we've seen already, I think Bryson Shaw has a little bit of an edge when it comes to filling up that whatever strong safety role, free safety, however they move him around. That opposite safety role of Kalen Bullock, I think Bryson Shaw is probably slightly the favorite right now, which is surprising to say too, and nothing against him, but he didn't start out the season last year, I think, even getting a lot of playing time, let alone not a starter. Yeah. But then the Arizona game had that big play, started having some flashes, and he's one of those stories where he earned his way into that starting role. Obviously, he's continued to build off that. There's a reason he started in the spring game, so wouldn't be surprised to see Kalen and Bryson starting off as the starting safeties when the ones go out to start fall camp. Now, nickel, that's where it gets confusing because we know Max Williams is not naturally a safety-type body, a safety-type player, but he did such a good job last year filling in for that role, being able to play opposite of Kalen. Had some big-time games, was one, I think, top 3 or 4 tackler on the team last year, was flying around all around the football. It was just tough for him at 5'8", 185 to cover some of these bigger tight ends when we went man-to-man, when we were in base defense, and he would rotate down Kalen, because Kalen is too good to come down in coverage. I love when he plays that center field position, can fly sideline to sideline. The Cal game sticks out to me. He's on the opposite hash. They tried to throw a go ball or a corner ball to the left. I mean, his cover speed, the way he moved across the field, went and made an interception was unbelievable. So he's too good to have come up to the line of scrimmage and have to play man-to-man and chase a guy around. You want him over there playing the full field. That just is where it was tough on Max to cover some of those guys at tight end when he's 5'8", 185 going against a 6'6", 265 tight end that's a little more physical. And we saw that against Dalton Kincaid a little bit.
Sorry,
we saw that
USC
against
fans for mentioning
yeah.
Dalton.
Well, he's gone now, so we can talk about
Yep.
it. And then who's the Notre Dame tight end? I'm blanking. Michael.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. I want to say Meyer.
Meyer. Okay, yeah. I think you're right.
Just because it sounded
Mayer.
like Mayer. Yes.
You know what though? I'm not even gonna say cut and reset and figure it out. It's Notre Dame, so whatever.
He also graduated.
Yeah, pass on that. Whatever. Whoever the Notre Dame tight end, and I mean that. You know what? No, I'm not gonna say no disrespect. I mean that disrespectfully. I got a little. I can say that. I'm a player. When we talk about Notre Dame, UCLA, I get fired up a little bit.
Michael Mayer is correct.
Whoever the tight end at Notre Dame was last year, but
Michael
my point
Mayer.
being, Michael Mayer. My point being is that was tough on Max, and we were probably asking a little more from him than what he's used to doing, because he's used to covering those quicker guys in the slot playing nickel. So, overall, I would say Kalen and Bryson would be starting out at safety, and then Jalen and Max, I think, will continue to compete at that slot position or playing that nickel back position. But two other guys, Zion Branch, a guy I don't know a whole lot about. I didn't get to see him last year. He was hurt.
Yeah.
And I know you know a little bit more about him.
The thing, though, is that, a guy coming off an ACL injury, in a position like safety, do you feel like he needs, and he's young, do you feel like he needs a little bit more time to even be seriously considered into the rotation?
Physically, yes, I do a little bit. Mentally, just from his quotes alone. And
Fair.
Wasn't Zion the guy that would wear the full pads, even though he couldn't play or anything, wearing full pads, helmet on? I love that.
I forgot about that, yeah.
I love that. That's so awesome. Him wearing full pads, knowing I'm not playing today, I'm hurt, but I'm still gearing up with my team. I'm going out there.
No, because I remember talking about it on the pod, because we got to talk to him first, and then I think Alex Grinch, and Zion was like, I'm ready to go 100%, and Alex Grinch was like, he's not 100%, but but mentally,
telling everybody. That's awesome though. But that's what he said when they interviewed him in the spring as well. I don't care. He said, I don't care, and I don't have the direct quote, but he said anywhere preferred was his direct quote. But it went on to say, I don't care where they want to put me at. I just want to be on the field and show my worth, show that I can play in college football, show that I can be an impact player for this defense. So definitely someone to keep your eye on, but your point is definitely valid.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I want to see him play.
Yeah, but no, it's a valid point. Coming off an ACL, that's, it's one of the worst.
It's a tough injury.
It's one of the worst football injuries you can have. It's the dreaded ACL. You worry about that. But there are a lot of guys, both defense and offense, that have come back from that injury and have gone on to have great careers. So, yes, it may hurt them right now, but in the long run, I don't think it'll be an issue. Can't wait to watch him. Anthony Beavers, a guy who played a little bit last year, played both safety and nickel in a couple games, played well. Obviously, being a younger guy, he was still kind of figuring it out, earning that confidence. But it's a good problem to have that, yes, we know we had some injuries last year. Yes, we had some guys out. Yes, we didn't have a solidified corner, a solidified safety, until Bryson Shaw kind of took that over later in the season. But it got a lot of these younger guys playing time, and it forced them to play early to get that experience. So now going forward, they know what to build off of. They have some film to watch, some self-scout, and they understand what it takes to play at this level.
Christian Pierce also got some honorable mention. I remember him being kind of highlighted by Lincoln Riley after a practice once. So
he looked great in the spring game too,
which is interesting. True freshman.
I put that on the notes. He really impressed me in the spring game. He was another guy, 6'2", 180. The way he can move around, reading ability. I think it was not to knock on my guy a little bit, but I think it was Malachi threw a ball to the left, and it was a cover 2 look, but he was kind of on the hash, a little bit pushed to the middle. Yeah. Great cover. I don't remember if he came down with the interception or got there to make a play on the ball.
I think he did
I think he did have a pick. Yeah,
he did.
It was awesome to watch. Great ball skills, very physical player, can come downhill and hit, but has got great read and react skills. Not putting him on the same pedestal, but a little bit of Kalen Bullock, that type of size, that movement, read and react, playing that center field position. So definitely someone to keep your eye on. And then Zamarian Gordon, a guy I don't know a whole lot about as well. But
a name we've heard in and out throughout his time here, but hasn't really solidified a permanent role yet.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, just like every other position, great depth. Guys that can come out and play. We've got guys that can come out and compete. Our 1s to 2s, as Lincoln, hates saying, we don't really have a 1 and 2 yet, but guys that can rotate in and out and not have a drop off from the starters to the secondary guys.
We got a question now that we've gone through both cornerbacks and safeties from Tyler, who said, who gets the first interception this year?
Oh, who was it last year? I feel like it was Shane Lee last year, wasn't it?
Was it? Okay, now I'm going to look this up.
I remember we had like 2 pick sixes in the Rice game. Because I was at that game. I went to that game.
That is a great
I think
point.
we had. I just flashback there. I'm a football junkie, so I remember all these weird stats. But
I will look this up later on.
Okay, I'm gonna go first pick next year. I'm gonna go Sierra Wright.
interesting.
Just from the confidence he's had this spring, just from the high praise he's gotten from the coaching staff, I expect him to be a starter out there. Again, I don't know for sure. Obviously, him and Damani go back and forth. Jacoby as well, opposite of Christian Roland-Wallace. But I think Sierra Wright's going to have the first pick of the season next year.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, book it. Write it down. Well, wait, it's on video now and it's on audio. So
Write it down.
It's written down. Who are you going with?
Kalen Bullock.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know.
That's an easy one.
You said that with some shade.
That's an easy one.
That's an easy one.
That's a safe answer. I mean, he led the team. He had 5 picks last year. Led the team in interception. He had an interception
safe or
too.
Smart, Cody.
I think he had a pick 6 as well.
Really? Wait, in the Rice game?
Yeah, in the Rice game.
Oh my goodness.
I'm pretty sure he had the long one, like the 94-yarder or something.
Okay, hold on. Give me a second.
Yeah, if people want to question if I.
Kalen Bullock had the first one.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, pick 6, and then
how many
Shane
yards?
Lee afterwards.
How many yards?
It was.
Does it say?
It does.
I'm saying
94. 93 yards.
3
for a touchdown.
That was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anyone wants to ever question my love for USC football and how much I pay attention, there you go.
What are you saying that?
No, I remember that. I remember
Okay.
that Rice game last year, first game of the year. I remember that perfectly.
I don't know. I have such a short-term memory loss when it comes to remembering plays in the football season because I think it's sleep deprivation. But
in my defense, I would do the podcast on Wednesdays, and then I would watch the game Saturdays. Those were kind of you were day in and day out. You had a ton of stuff to remember, so
yeah,
I'll cut you a little slack right
thank
there.
Thank you, Cody.
Okay, but yeah, I'm going Sierra Wright, and then you're going Kalen Bullock.
Okay, gotta give the safety some love.
Yeah, we'll see who it is.
Do you have any other thoughts about the safeties, or I guess the defense as a whole? Granted, we do have way more questions to get to, but any thoughts about the safeties before we move on?
Yeah, I think that's about it. Again, a lot more depth. Some of the familiar faces, some different faces, some guys that I'm expecting to take that next step. But let's get the fall camp. I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I thought I would be more pumped up for the offensive episode, but here I am I'm sweating a little bit down here.
Yeah, what is happening?
I'm ready
You're
to go.
a
I'm excited. I know. I'm excited. It'll be a lot of fun to watch this defense this year.
Alrighty, well, let's jump into more questions. Manny said, excited to see this new defense. Do you think anyone earns the 55 jersey this year?
Ooh.
It's a good question.
Yeah, that's a legendary number. I don't know. I mean,
the last one to wear it was Lamar Dawson.
Yeah, that was with me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it. I think this has been a reoccurring question we've got before. So it's a great question. I don't know. I mean, has anybody requested it? Has there been any stories? Because I know obviously Jordan requested 3 for Carson Palmer, but
I remember there was some talk that Cam Smith might have gotten the 55, and then that got backed off. And then I remember Solomon Tuliaupupu, there was some talk with him that got backed off. So I think it's just been one of those things where, and Palier Naotote, if anyone remembers him before he transferred as well. But it's one of those things where I think now everyone's a little like shy to do it. But if it's a tradition, you kind of got to keep it going.
But it's also some big shoes to fill. So
I know, but that's the thing. Is
it's almost like. And I'm just speaking. We don't know, but it's almost like maybe someone's afraid to ask for it because you've got to live up to those standards. But I'd love for someone to step up and take it and say, hey, I want to wear it with on. I would just love to see the number 55 back on USC defense again. I think a lot of Trojan fans, and that's probably why Manny's asking is we'd love to see 55 out there flying around again. Yeah,
and I think to keep the tradition alive, you obviously have to keep it going, and I'll have this lull. So I mean, it's kind of
the longer you wait. Well, it could be 2-part. I guess the longer you wait, it kind of loses tradition, but. That's tough to say because you're always going to junior say out guys that wore it so well, but it's exactly. You want to have it though be a continued tradition, so that it doesn't fall off and then get forgotten because we're going to remember. Trojan fans around are going to remember, but the longer you go, the more it's going to be like, oh, well, what was the significance of 55? That's what I mean by that. Yeah. You want to keep that alive year in and year out.
And also, the more time that goes in between, the more it's like, okay, well, what are the standards to get the 55? It's going to be a much bigger hurdle to jump rather than kind of keeping it.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, because I didn't mean that in a bad way. I'm not saying the 55 falls off, people forget. I'm just saying if
I
it,
know.
You know what I'm saying? If it doesn't continue as these younger guys keep coming through recruiting,
of course,
they're going to lose significance. Us Trojan, fans that have been around forever will always know. But I want the players to remember that same type of tradition and understand why 55 is so important.
No, trust me. We're reaching the age group now in the recruiting classes.
Are you aging us right now?
Hold on. All right. Some of these guys don't remember Reggie Bush.
No.
No. It's true.
I can't believe that.
I'll
never believe that. Well, I'll tell you this. I saw a funny comment on YouTube, by the way. All the comments on YouTube were awesome, too. So shout out. I know we did that at the beginning.
Shout out to YouTube. Everyone's still watching.
Yeah, all the YouTube. But someone said, my man Cody looks grown or he looks older now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm 30 now, so I'm I've been
30.
removed.
I'm a man.
I got a beard now too, a little bit. I had, I'm a married
I don't know why I
man.
just clap for your beard.
Yeah, thanks. Claps for the beard.
Way to grow a beard,
I've only
Cody.
had this for a couple years now, but yeah, it's just funny. And I say that to say, like, it's funny how far each year it doesn't seem like it's that big of a difference, but how far removed I got from playing at USC, And
Yeah.
I parked over, I brought my truck today. So normally I park on campus with my wife's Audi, but I brought my truck that doesn't fit in the parking garage, which is a hilarious story. I'm not going to tell that. I won't put you on blast, but that was hilarious. I'm going to put you on blast real quick,
Okay,
actually.
fine. Go for it.
I told Keely, I said, don't worry about a parking pass. I can't fit in the parking garage. And Keely goes, well, there's no roof on the top of the parking garage. I said, I know, but I can't fit there. And she's like, well, yeah, if you park on the roof, if you park on the roof of the parking garage, there's no ceiling. I said, Keely, I still have to drive through the 6 levels to get to the ceiling. And she's like, oh, yeah. So.
Look, it's been a long day.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
My bad.
But now I lost my train of thought.
No, you were talking about how old you are.
Oh, yeah. But then I park over by Menlo where I used to stay. And I'm like, oh, I used to live there. Oh, 8, 9, I'm coming up on 8 years ago now, and it's just crazy each year that goes how far you get removed from that. But
I will say, though, we did get teased a little bit because we started the last episode by saying how you and I are so old these days. And everyone was like, you guys are like 20 and 30. Like, can you calm down, please?
True.
So
yeah, not to age anybody else. I'm just saying I'm feeling personally older.
It's always specific
the more I get removed
to us.
from playing USC
Don't
football.
worry.
Yeah.
It's just about us.
Okay, but yeah, we got a little carried away. But yeah, just going with that, I would love to keep that tradition going so these younger guys understand why 55 is so important to Trojan football and Trojan history.
Way to bring it back around.
Bring it back.
Very proud of you.
All right, we're getting late. It's now, what is it?
It is 9:18.
All right.
William said, how much different will the defense look from last season? Granted, we don't know, but if you had to guess.
Yeah, I think scheme-wise, it's going to be – I think scheme-wise, we're going to get more of a identity. I think we're going to get to what Coach Grinch wants to do just because it's year 2. I felt like last year, and Coach Grinch even said in some of those post-game interviews, is we're trying new stuff out. We're trying to mix and match. We're putting guys at different positions. We're trying to figure out what works well for us. Now that we've got some great transfers coming in, now that we've got guys going into year 2 under this scheme, I think there's going to be a lot more of identity of who we are defensively, and that's what I think a lot of Trojan fans have been wanting all along, is let's put our best 11 out there, a couple rotational guys, and let's go out there, and yeah, we were a turnover defense. Yeah, we were bend, don't break, but let's go out there and have a dominant identity to where, hey, we're going to come out, even if it's 50-50 man zone, but whatever we're doing, we're going to be really good at it. We're not going to try things out when it's week 9, 10, 11 throughout the end of the season, but yeah, personnel-wise, obviously it's going to look a little different, but I think schematically I'd like to have more of an identity this year as opposed to trying new things out from last year.
We have so many questions. I was just reading them while you were talking. I was
Good.
like, wow.
Fire away. I'll be quick.
We can go rapid fire.
Yeah.
Manny wanted to know which opponent will test the defense the most.
I don't know. That's a good question. I think Utah obviously pops up first.
Yeah.
I think that's
Washington.
A little bit of a revenge game. Yeah, Washington. The last 6 of the last 9 games will be there. Washington, Oregon, Utah. Those teams, Notre Dame.
Close your eyes and throw a dart.
Yeah, UCLA, any of those teams. But I would say probably most – and we didn't play Oregon last year too. So that will be very challenging not to have some self-scout against them. So I think either Oregon or – and we didn't play Washington as well. So some of those games, but I think Utah is going to be a little more personal. Yeah. I think that's going to be a game to where our defense wants to go out and show that they can stop Cam Rising in that offense.
Chris wanted to know which position group is critical to the success of a turnaround.
It needs to start up front. I think it's tough to pick between linebackers, rush in, D-line. I think front 7 in general, there has to be a dominance all across the board there. Obviously, you want great coverage in the back end, but you can create a lot of havoc and stop a lot of teams up front from getting that momentum, from having big-time plays if you have a great run defense and a great pass rush.
Yeah, +1. Marco wanted to know which player needs to have a breakout season for us to be contenders.
It's got to be someone up front again. It's got to be someone to fill the shoes of Tuli Tuipulotu. That's just, it has to happen. And whether that's
Lucas,
Anthony Lucas, whether it's tough to say Bear Alexander and Keon Bars because they're kind of 2 different type of players than Tuli was. But yeah, Anthony Lucas, Corey Foreman can be a guy that can have a breakout year that can really turn the corner and be an impact player on this defense. And it could be a linebacker. It could be Mason Cobb that we send a lot on third down, rushing the quarterback, getting back there, creating sacks. But in my opinion, it has to be someone in the front 7 that can fill the shoes of Tuli.
And the thing I've said this before, I've been always so curious about is like what actually happens if USC gets consistent production from that edge position, because that's what Grinch said multiple times, and a lot of the other defensive assistant coaches, like, we need production there, and Tuli was really the only guy to bring that. So
yeah, and I'll tell you as an opposing quarterback, when you go against a defense that has dudes, that has dogs, that has guys like that, it is intimidating. I'll never forget my rookie year in Cleveland playing against Pittsburgh. You know, they had James Harrison, they had Ryan Shazier, they had Lawrence Timmons, they had all these guys in the front seven that were. And Baltimore was the same way. They just had, and the AFC North. AFC North is obviously a very difficult division to play in, but going against those defenses as a quarterback, there's that little timer in the back of your head where, hey, you know, obviously they've got great guys that can cover it, but those guys aren't going to come hit me play after play. When you have a dominant front seven or a rush end or two of them, it is a very terrifying feeling as a quarterback and as an offense. So, yeah, it just has to start up front. Someone has to turn the corner and really fill those shoes of Thule.
Riga wanted to know, is there a position group that you are concerned about?
I wouldn't say concerned. Question mark, linebackers. We talked about how that rotation is going to work, but I wouldn't say concerned. But I would say concerned about the cornerback position. I just think with how much rotation there was last year outside of Mackay, and obviously Christian Rawlins coming over being a transfer makes me feel a little more comfortable with the experience he has, and he's already proved on tape that he can play in the Pac-12 and play at a high-level college program. But there just needs to be 2 guys or 3 guys if we're rotating, but it has to be consistency and it has to be solidified, especially in a pass-heavy conference.
Fatima had 2 questions. She said, who will be the most impactful addition to the defense, transfer and freshman, and which returning member of the defense do you expect to take a big leap this season?
Yeah, I'm going with Anthony Lucas again. I know we say his name a lot. I just think the capability that he has, you know, Barry Alexander's right there, maybe 1A, 1B, but I'm going Anthony Lucas, and that's who I said in the spring. And then returning, I would love, you know, obviously Kalen Bullock, again, is an easy answer. You know, he's going to be one of the best safeties in the country. But I would love to be right about Corey Foreman being confident, turning that next, you know, turning the corner, being that guy that everyone wants him to be, and that I know he's capable of being. So I'm going to go Corey Foreman. I think he takes that next step and really turns it around and becomes a great impact player and builds off of that confidence he had late in last year.
I'm going to say Sear Wright.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Carlos had multiple questions, but basically he wanted to know, you know, he said he feels his opinion is that the returning players don't get mentioned enough. It's a lot of like the hype around the new guys coming in. And he wanted to know, who do you think is the most valuable returner? And he wanted to know who is the defensive player with the most time on the team. So I think experience is what he's talking about. I want to say Kalen Bullock.
I was about to say, you're going to have to, for the...
You answer, and then I will...
First question is Kalen Bullock as well. Yeah. Most valuable returner, in my opinion, the best safety in college football. I'm going Kalen Bullock. But
I
longest tenure, I don't know.
I think it has to be Kalen based on the fact that he played as a true freshman.
Okay. Are we going off of not just on the roster, but playing time-wise?
I would say, I would say experience. I mean, if you want to say time, then we could think of like Solomon Tuliaupupu.
Yeah.
But does that count considering we're going off of like game reps?
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, we'll go Kalen on that one then.
Okay. Alex said Cody may be biased on this, and that is totally okay. For a team to succeed, is it better to have more defensive players or more offensive players? Or, quote unquote, it depends. In which case does it depend on?
I think it's the as long as you want to go back to the legendary quote, offense wins games, defense wins championships. And I firmly believe that because we saw that last year. We have a great offense. We probably have the best offense in college football when it comes to production-wise. We have, hands down, the best quarterback in college football. But to take that next step, you have to have a dominant defense. Again, I hate using other teams as examples because this is a USC podcast, but the proof is in the product. You know, Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, teams that are Ohio State, they always at Michigan, they have great defenses year in and year out, and they're always in the college football playoff. They're always in the top 5, top 6 of the college football rankings at the end of the season. So, yeah, I think, again, offense wins games, defense wins championships.
Rama had multiple questions, so I don't know if you want – I'll give you one by one. He said, based on what you saw during spring camp, can the defense be in the top 50 in the country?
Yeah, I think so. And some listeners may think top 50, that's not a huge goal, but we were in the lower end of college football last year. I think some of it was in the 80s, some of it was above 100. I think 50s would be a great starting point to turn the page. I would love to see us higher up in some categories. You know, obviously I would love to see us be a top 10 defense. Is that a reality going into the second year? I don't know. I would love for that to happen. But, yeah, I think absolutely top 50 is attainable.
How much more depth do we have versus last year?
A lot. I think a lot more depth. We did lose some key pieces, but I do think we've added, and I know we've talked a lot about transfer players, but just today's era of college football, a lot of, and it helps not having to have freshmen learn right away, and you can save some of these guys, allow some redshirt years if you go hit the transfer portal hard, which we did. I think that added a lot more depth, especially on defense this year.
We kind of addressed this, but he also wanted to know, will Tackett Curtis start or redshirt or be a reserve?
That's a great question. I'm going to hold off on that one. I kind of answered that earlier. I could see all three happening. I could see him maybe not starting. I think starting is the longest shot of those three.
Yeah.
But I think reserve redshirt, it's kind of flirting with that line. Is he going to be a rotational guy? Will we have some packages for Tackett to get in there and make some plays? Or are we going to save him, redshirt him, and allow him to learn this year and kind of let him loose next year?
Steve said, each of you pick one surprise defensive player who will rise far above expectations. Did you just point at me after I was reading the question?
Well, I was going to kind of steal yours if you weren't going to say. Who would you say?
I didn't finish thinking of reading.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Sometimes it's hard to transition from question reading to answer.
Okay, go ahead.
So you're still putting me up?
Yeah, I'm letting you go first.
Why?
Well, because I feel like I'm going to steal yours.
No, go for it.
I'm gonna go Jamil Muhammad.
Oh,
I know you've been
is this
high.
why you were
That's why I was
me?
like, I thought
Now
you were
it
going to
makes
say that
sense.
right
no,
away.
I wasn't even thinking of that. I was thinking more on the young side.
Okay, yeah, I just think he's not been I don't want to say under the radar, but not
as.
And you obviously got to earn respect, but not as much as Bear when he came in, not as much as Jack Sullivan coming in, Keon Bars. I think Jamil Muhammad, like you said, is going to surprise a lot of people. I think he's going to have a bigger impact than some Trojan fans think this year.
Wow, that's a great answer. I wish I would have said it first.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was letting you have the opportunity.
I didn't even think of it. So great job.
Okay.
I'm going to say surprise player. Who would be a surprise, though?
More so like someone that might be a guy, but not quite an impact player. Like he's kind of a role player that can take it to an impact player and become a playmaker.
I'll say Jack Sullivan.
Okay, cool.
The next question we got is from Jorge, and it's actually a couple questions.
Jorge.
And I don't know. I just read it in a funny tone. I know it's probably not, but I'm going to read it how my brain reads it, and you can take it from there, Cody. He goes, is our defensive scheme too complicated for our college players? Too nuanced? Too simple? What is our defensive scheme? So he kind of went broad.
I mean, it's kind of what I just said a couple questions ago. The same thing is that we didn't really have an identity last year. And I know for Coach Grinch, he's always been that, on paper at least, speed defense, front seven's very important, pin our ears back, get after the quarterback, cover well on the back end. We had to mix and match so much last year. Yes, I know some of it had to do with injuries. I know some of it had to do with consistency. Guys not really filling that corner spot. Guys opposite of Thule not having a great pass rush, or whenever Thule came out, we didn't have guys that were in there that could be dominants. What I really want to see this year from Coach Grinch and this defensive staff is get a set 11 guys we know that are going to dominate each game, and let it be 13, 14 guys that we can rotate in, but let's form an identity. Let's not make it too complicated to where we're having to try a whole bunch of different stuff out, because it's hard, and on offense as well. But as a defender, to know, okay, this is what our base defense is. Now it's not working. Now we're going to have to learn a whole new thing, a bunch of new things on the fly as we go through this first year. It's tough to do, right? And then you don't play full speed. Then you're thinking a lot. That confidence goes down. So, yeah, I don't think it's too confusing. I don't think there's too many moving parts for our defense as a whole. I just think we need to kind of summarize a little bit more, make it a little bit more condensed, keep that personality of what we do well, what we don't do well, and let's stick to those things that we excel at and make that our identity on defense.
Jason wanted to know, do you think Grinch picked Bear's brain about the Georgia defense and things USC could do to improve?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know if he specifically talked to Bear about that, but I know that these coaches at the end of the year will watch film on, and offense, it's a copycat league, right? On offense, there's no like secret formula to where Lincoln Riley, it's how you call the plays are important, but there's no secret formula to where Lincoln has secret plays that no one else knows. Now, week in and week out, he'll tweak things a little bit, add some new stuff, but overall, it's a copycat league. You just find guys within your personnel that can replicate what other teams do well and then apply that to your own offense, your own defense. But yeah, I don't know if he talked to Bear specifically, but I guarantee you this coaching staff will watch some of the better defenses in the country and see what they do well and how we can use some of that stuff. That's a great question, though. I mean, some of these, especially with the transfer era nowadays, like, how much are these coaching staffs, especially from within the conference, get a little bit of ins and outs of what those teams do?
Is it weird, though, for a coach to ask a player that?
No, not at all. I mean, when I was in the NFL, you do it all the time. Because NFL is a lot different. There's only 32 teams, so you get traded a lot. Hey, we might be playing this opponent this week. You've been there before. What are some of the things they do? What are, not necessarily their calls, but what do you remember from understanding when you were there learning their offense? But yeah, it's all a copycat league. No one's doing any crazy thing that no one's ever seen. And every game's on film anyway, so you can go back and watch it.
Speaking of your time in the NFL, Scott wanted to know which defensive scheme in college or pro gave you the most trouble? Which team's defense was challenging year in and year out?
College, I will go with Stanford. They were quite vanilla, but they had very good players on defense. Their personnel year in and year out was top notch. And this was like when I was playing Stanford, kind of just after Andrew Luck, kind of those type of years when Stanford was very dominant. I know they've kind of fallen off a little bit. Hopefully they can get back to being a good football team again. But during those years, Stanford defense, every single time we played them was always tough. And it wasn't that they would do crazy stuff. It was just that they were so fundamentally sound. They were disciplined. They rarely ever made mistakes. It was hard to expose them as an offense because they were always in the right place at the right time. So I'm going college, Stanford, NFL by far, in my opinion. This is just from me being a starter when I was playing Baltimore. Baltimore was the most confusing defense. They did this thing where, they would give you, and Tennessee's a team that comes to mind. When I played in Jacksonville, we played them on a Thursday night. We spent so much time, and it was, a shortened week, obviously, on a couple days to prepare, but Tennessee and Baltimore are two teams up front where they would have guys move around to different spots. You'd have their DN would be the 3-tech next player. They have a 3-tech move out wide. Eric Weddle, when he was in Baltimore, would be down on the line of scrimmage, and then at the snap, he'd be playing cover 2 on the other side of the field. So
oh my gosh,
it's tough, and that's kind of the pre-snap, post-snap we've talked about before is what you see before the play goes, having to call these checks, make all that, it's not going to be the same once the ball's snapped, right? It's crazy as a quarterback to do all that. But, yeah, it would be college, Stanford, and NFL would probably be Baltimore.
We got a question from Will, who clearly listened to the end of the podcast last week. He said, last week, Cody gave us great insight into play calls for the offense. How did the defensive calls compare? How are they changed after the offense comes to the line?
Yeah, so defense, I've obviously never played on defense, so I've never had to sit there and get a call while on the field. But I do know that they start front to back, I'm pretty sure. I think everybody gets, and each team might be different, but it'll be like under front, right? Or whatever the front may be, over, bear technique, whatever it may be, it'll be under Sam, which is Sam pressure, cover 3, right? Cover 3B, 3 blitz. So they'll start up front. What's the front? What are the linebackers doing? And then what's the coverage behind that? Everybody will know. But what makes defense so complicated, in my opinion, I lived with Sua before, so I kind of picked his brain as we were going through training camp, all that stuff, just to get a little bit of an edge up. But is that there's a lot of adjustments involved. And that's where defense gets super complicated. You come out and be under Sam pressure, cover 3, right? They know, okay, safety's rotating down, the Sam pressure's coming, Kalen or whoever the free safety is rotating to the back. But then as soon as they go, and this could be in a 2x2, then they motion over 3x1, go away from. Then it can be, hey, let's check this out. If you get this look, or if you get running back motions out, there's a check for that, right? So there's multiple things. Now the offense is doing whatever they're going to do. Yes, you can scheme, you'll have the whistle from Lincoln or someone on the sideline, hey, check, we saw what they're doing, let's change the play. But defensively, you really have to base what you're doing off of what the offense look that you're given, right? So
it's reactive.
It's all reactive, and then that may change, like, hey, if they motion across, they go from a 2x2 to a 3x1. I know one example is, let's lock backside, so then it's man-to-man on the X backside. The single receiver will still play zone over here. Or we can roll to cloud. If it's a Jordan Addison on the backside, let's cloud him as a single receiver, not let him tear us apart all game, and then we'll play man on this side or zone, whatever, across the board. But, yeah, defense is normally D-line, what they're doing, what the pressure, what the linebackers are behind it, and then the coverage behind that, and then it's all read and react from there. If there's motion, they motion the back out. There's empty checks. There's 3x1 checks. There's so many different things. Strength of formation could be the right. Then you see the tight end go left. Then we change the strength of the formation on defense. That's why you see the front sometimes. They'll be in an under, which will be shade, 3-5 technique. Tight end motions across. Then they switch over. The shade goes to 3. The 3 goes to shade. And the 5 goes to 3, right? And then that 5 technique on this side bounces outside. So a lot of what the defense does. And that's why, yes, offense is tough to learn. Yes, as a quarterback, it's tough. But defense is equally, maybe not equally. I don't want to give too much praise to the defense. I'm an offensive guy. But defense can be tough because if you don't know every single check for what formation the offense is doing, then you're lost. And I think that's what hurt us a little bit last year is when we saw something when we came out, and then they motioned across. Guys were struggling, communicating, getting in the right position. And then obviously, especially in the Pac-12 with these hurry-up offenses, then the ball snap and you're already a step late. So, yeah, I think it goes front to back. Obviously, Dion would be a lot better to answer this question because
good point.
He lived his whole life playing defense and understanding the calls. But normally it goes what the front is, what the linebackers are doing, whether there's a pressure or playing coverage, and then what the back end, what the safeties and the corners are doing as well, and then all your shifts and motions, how we're reacting to that, and what are our checks off of that.
I'll make a note to ask Dion this at some point.
Yeah, ask Dion. I would be interested to hear that too.
Yeah.
I'd always kind of like peek and try to get some of that during fall camp, but it was tough. Obviously, I had a lot of other things going on offensively, but I would always try to get a little bit here and there from the defense. But yeah, I'm not fully sure how they call that.
Yeah. Again, like I said last week, every time you go into this much detail, my respect for football players just goes through the roof because it's like I feel like so many people, and I am so guilty of this as in my role, but to be a backseat analyst when you just don't know the layers that go into it.
And as fans, it's normal. We focus so much on production, right? You focus, hey, how is this guy playing? And that's important, right? You have to produce, you have to be good, or else you're going to get replaced. But the whole other side to it is the mental side of the game. You might be one of the better players I've played with 5-star guys that came in that couldn't learn an offense, that couldn't learn a defense. And then you wonder, well, this guy has every ability in the world to be a first-round pick, to be a top 5 player in college football. But if you can't pick up the mental aspect of that, you're going to play slower. You're going to lose confidence. And then once you lose confidence, you kind of go in the tank. It's extremely hard at high-level football to get out of it and find that confidence again.
Something that we didn't mention as far as like, in my opinion, why it's harder to preview a defense or a defensive roster rather than an offense is I feel like it's also so hard to determine who messed up their responsibility.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point.
You know what I mean? Because like when it comes to like, okay, this guy should have the starting role. It's like, yeah, he is consistent at catching the ball.
Yeah.
I don't need to know his assignment to know that, you know, whereas if it looks like someone messed up on defense, is that really his fault or was he, you know?
Well, how many times do you see too where there's a deep ball caught or there's a guy catching it and the safety's the closest one there, but then they turn around and look back at the defense and throw their hands up.
Yeah, and he's like,
where are you at? Like,
yeah.
You're going to get blamed because you're the closest guy there. Hey, make the play, pick it up, whatever it is. But the corner could have completely blown the coverage, but no one knows that from the outside looking in.
Exactly.
No, that's a great point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like we don't actually know. So sometimes it's like, well, why is this guy not getting? Yeah,
and that's too though as a player why you have to block out the media or block the media literally on Twitter. And then you have to block out, you know, just the fans that hate all that because the coaching staff knows you go back and watch film. Yeah. You could get hate for giving up the game-winning play when in reality it's not even your fault, right? It could have been this guy was supposed to be over there. We're supposed to be in cloud coverage and the corner let him go, but the safety thought it was one high and he stayed in the middle, give up a touchdown, and then everyone's blaming the corner, right? When really it's not your fault.
Speaking of block, I got another request this week for you as let
me get my phone.
The mom.
Am I unblocking someone live again?
You are unblocking someone live. I think this might become a segment. Cody unblocks someone.
Okay.
Rob Herring requested that you unblock him. It's literally how it sounds at Rob Harring. If you guys don't remember last week, Fight on Rusty got unblocked.
It's at Rob Herring?
Yes.
ROBHERRING?
Yes. And he has a cute dog in the photo.
Yeah, okay, then that's not his at. Because I'm looking at Rob Herring, and that's not it.
At Rob. Well, maybe because you blocked him.
No. I'm on a Rob Herring page right now.
I'm sending you his handle.
Okay, here it is. I found it. Rob Herring holding a picture of a dog. All right. Just for everyone so everybody can see.
Rob.
Blocked. Unblock Rob Herring. Bang.
Do we have a one shot of him? Perfect.
Cody, please unblock me. Yes.
See, now
there we go.
You should favorite it as a little like a.
Just so he knows.
Yeah, it's a little Easter egg.
All right, I'll unfavorite or unfavorite. I'll favorite. I unblocked him.
There you go.
Boom.
All right. There you go, Rob.
Fair enough.
Everyone's like, great. We can move on.
All right, Yeah. Okay, let's go. Wrap it up.
Yeah. We have so many questions about forecasting the starting defensive lineup. Which, if you listen at all to this episode, you know, we can't even do it.
Yeah, we tried.
This is we've seen, or at least I've seen fall camp. Let's have some educated guesses later on in 4 weeks.
Okay, cool. And I'll go just for clarification. I'm going to go, this is the starting defense for the spring game from top to bottom.
Okay.
It was Bryson Shaw, Kalen Bullock at safety, Damani Jackson, Sierra Wright at corner, Jalen Smith at nickel, Mason Cobb, Shane Lee at linebacker, and then the starting 4 D linemen were Keon Bars, Anthony Lucas, Jack Sullivan, and Solo. So that was based off of, our offense starting a nickel. So for what it's worth, that's my educated guess for right now. I don't know. Obviously, I think Barry Alexander is a guy that's going to have an impact there. I know I'm getting off topic. All right, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Because we're going to go back through it all over again. No, that's my educated guess right now.
Okay.
I think that'll be the defense to start off day one of fall camp. And then obviously we'll keep you updated as those practices go on.
Yes. That was supposed to be like a we don't know this question was answered. Let's move on. And
I know.
then you were like,
I'm getting delirious. It's late. I'm rolling right now.
It's all good. Yeah, we're entering the 10 p.m. mark right now.
Yeah.
And people are sitting here like, how in the world is this happening?
Yeah.
We don't know either.
All right.
Alex said, you knew someone sooner or later would ask about AI. So here it is. What will be the impact of AI on college football? When and how will AI assist busy coaches with player evaluations, game planning, and play calling? Which is a fascinating question because I haven't thought of this before.
I have not either. And I mean, I think kind of what he said, assisting coaches, I think it'll, which I know, I'll say this, what coaches would love is if AI could start drawing up scripts and drawing up plays. I know they do have some form of that, but I know there would be some GAs and some QCs that would absolutely love that because when you get in the NFL too, you had some of those quality control guys that were in there till like 3 a.m. drawing up cards showing like scout cards, right? Hey, this is what we saw, like watching film. Say we're playing Oregon that week. They would watch what Oregon defense does against 3-by-1, all the different looks they do, and they would take time drawing those cards up, and then we would give our offense those looks, right? They show, hey, scout defense, this is what they're doing right now. We're going to run this play. Boom, done. Next card. And they would be in there till 3 a.m. watching film, scouting that. So I think, A, that would be a great help, and then B, obviously, it would take a little bit of the in-person effect of it, but I think recruiting. I don't know how you would do it, but it'd be interesting to kind of categorize it that way. I'm sure they already do with some of these recruiting sites, but I have no idea. That's a great question, Alex. We'll stay tuned for that one.
Or maybe even like cutting up film or something like that. I know that there's AI technology to automatically cut up a podcast based on who's talking.
Oh, yeah. I remember you telling about that.
Yeah. So who knows? That's a great question, and we'll see for sure. A couple non-football questions before we get to emoji giveaway and the Cody 2-minute drill. Bush Push 55 said, who do you think on defense would win in a taco eating contest?
I love that name, by the way. Bush Push 55.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's like how much more USC can you get?
Yeah, that's full USC right there. I'm going with Keon Bars.
Interesting.
I don't know why he popped in my mind just because I saw him doing the bench press the other day. Mm-hmm. D lineman. He got to be a D lineman guy. I'm going Keon Bars.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay.
That was really boring, but maybe Bear.
Yeah,
Keon Bear. Yeah, maybe he can do it.
Okay.
One of them. We got a question from Samuel, who, by the way, actually did have a non-football question last week, but Blair missed it. So we got off easy.
Thank you, Blair.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry, Sam, but thank you, Blair.
We got off easy.
We would have been here a lot longer. We got one this week, though?
We did, and he actually +1'd, if you remember Rob's question from earlier about what do you expect from the front this year, he was like, this is such a great question. I'm just going to ask a non-topic one. So here we go. He wanted to know, Keely, is stock neutral on USC compliance threatening to arrest you if you do a Family Feud reunion podcast? With Cody being busy, it's a perfect opportunity for a feud reunion pod, or alternatively bring Cody on too for a guest segment and he can be the new cousin of the pod. So that's heavy on references to the last podcast I did at my old job.
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
Yeah, so it was called the Family Feud podcast, and we'd have like stock up, stock down, talking about who's trending upward, who's trending downward. Stock neutral is something I came up with. And there have been asked by people on Twitter who listen to that podcast for us to have a reunion podcast, but I can't go on the show or have them because technically they're part of a recruiting site, and that would be a compliance violation.
So that's what
Yes.
Okay.
And so everyone thinks I made that up. Like, I just don't want to talk to them. It's trust me, if I could talk to them or be on their podcast, I would be on it, but I don't want to cause any trouble. So
fair enough.
So yes, it is illegal. And then a question from Cody from Sam. He said, if you could be friends with any one character from The Office, who would it be?
Michael Scott. I mean, Michael Scott. I'm not going to think too hard on this one.
Would he annoy you, though, or no?
I mean, it would, but it would be just nonstop laughs. In my opinion, Michael Scott is one of the funniest on-screen TV characters of all time.
I need to see you watch The
There
Office.
was always but that's he would annoy you a little bit, but then he'd have those kind of bring you back in moments, right?
Moments.
Yeah, where it's like, there's one episode where he's talking about, imagine if you had a boss that didn't have 3 accountants or didn't allow workplace relationships, and everyone kind of looked around like, okay, maybe we do take them for granted. So it was a great pull of comedy, maybe a little bit of annoy you, and then he'll reel you back in, bring in that family environment mentality. So yeah, I'd go Michael Scott on that one.
Okay. Alrighty, Cody, I'm running through it. We know everyone knows it's 10 p.m. right now, so we're just going to go to the emoji giveaway. I have random.org popped up. What number should I put?
You have 1 through 43.
1 through
big
43.
week.
Yeah,
that was a big week.
That.
43. I like it. I think we got some some input this week
Did
too.
We?
I don't know.
How exciting.
43 is a lot. That's like season numbers that we were normally doing with the 43. Okay, I'm ready. 1 through 43.
Also, thank you to everyone who said happy birthday to my father. He was loving the limelight. It was pretty exciting.
That was pretty cool on Twitter. I was watching all that.
20.
20 is Ted Barber Jr. 1 is the @name. I know Ted. I've messaged Ted before. He's been
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, reoccurring listener.
Does his background have like green in it?
Let me find it. I know. Yeah. It's okay. So
I have like random memories.
Now we can see it. This is Ted.
Oh,
yeah.
Ta-da.
His picture. This is his background photo. Yeah, I've talked to Ted before too. So yeah, Ted Barber username is @TedBarberJr1. Full name Ted Barber Jr. Congratulations, Ted. You are this week's emoji giveaway winner. To the other 42. I hate it. I'm sorry. I know some of the people have won on here already, so don't feel too bad. But there are a lot of people that are reoccurring listeners that do emojis week in and week out, and I feel terrible that everybody can't win. But
don't worry, we see you. We thank you for your emojis.
We appreciate it too, and especially everybody who's already won that still re-enters. I know we talked about it last episode, but that's awesome. But
it's great to see the interaction. That's the real thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love seeing all the emojis. And I know that's when I know when the podcast drops, because Keely doesn't always text me saying,
"Oops,
hey, podcast is out" or whatever.
Oh,
I start seeing emojis
this is like
on
pod therapy right now.
No. I don't. I mean, I hear it anyways, but I start seeing my Twitter feed pick up with last week. It was a birthday cake and tennis balls. I'm like, oh, podcast is out.
Podcast is out. Yeah.
But nonetheless, congratulations, Ted. Again, your things that you can win. I blanked out here. I'm getting tired. Sorry. Are a USC hat, a USC sweatshirt, a USC long sleeve shirt, or a USC T-shirt. And I will give you some time to hear this episode so I don't spoil it for you myself. Kevin won last week. I'm going to reach out to Kevin now. I don't know if he's listening. Not trying to put Kevin on blast. I know, just a little bit there. A little bit on blast. But I like to allow the fans to listen to it because it's a little more exciting when you hear the episode and then you hear your name called instead of getting a random message from me saying, congratulations, you've won.
Yeah.
And then I kind of ruin the whole episode. But if you do want to enter.
Whole episode.
Yeah. Well, not the whole episode, but the emoji part. But if you do want to enter for future reference to be in the emoji giveaway, Keely and I in a second will give out 2 emojis. We do it every week. And then you have to respond with the emojis. And you also have to be following us on whatever platform you do. So if you do respond on Twitter, you have to be following myself, Keely, and the Victory Pod on Twitter. And if you do it on Instagram, you have to be following myself, Keely, and the Victory Pod on Instagram as well. And then we put it in random.org, our trusty little organizer or our randomizer that we use. And some people probably don't love that app a whole lot.
Not.
And they think they might be a little biased, but it's completely random.
We have deniability.
Yeah.
It's not us.
With that being said, it is time for the emojis this week. Right?
Do you want to half and half it?
You want to half it again? Yeah, go ahead.
How about a jellyfish?
Okay, jellyfish. And I'm sticking with the sport theme. That one's just easier for me to pick, and we're not here. I'm going to go with let me get to the sports section real quick.
You just finished with, and we're not here, but I think you were going to say we're not here for a million years.
Was that? No, I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah,
so we're not. Oh yeah, so we're not here forever.
I speak Cody now.
Okay, sports. I gotta get to the sports section.
I'm getting delirious at this point.
Let's go with the golf flag. So golfing, the golf flag. It's not the U.S. Open. It's the Open Championship this weekend. I'm excited for that. I know my golf fans are as well out there.
Okay.
So we'll go with a jellyfish and the golf flag, the stick. It's a red flag on it.
What does it look like? You just described it. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the golf flag.
It has like the little mound.
Yeah, not the golfer, but the grass below it and the golf flag and the stick, whatever you want to call it, pole in the ground or in the cup, and then a red flag.
Perfect.
Cool.
There we go.
Yeah.
Enter to win.
Yeah, let's wrap. We're wrapping it up right now. Stick with us.
And I apologize. Already, Cody, it is time to pass it over for you.
Yes.
It is the 2-minute, 4-minute, 10-minute.
This is how you bring me back to life, though. I love this part of the episode. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, you're biased.
Yeah, very biased. So here we go. Starting off with Trojan Mom 06. Trojan Mom question of the week. What was your what were your favorite 2 games where defense stood out the most when you played? I would have to say the Stanford game, which was my all-time favorite. Sua had that great pick. Our defense just kept stepping up game after game. And then the second game would have to be Notre Dame, my junior year in the Coliseum. We ended up beating them, I think it was 48-14. Defense played great. Ton of turnovers, ton of sacks. Shout out to Dion. Dion was gone. It was Hayes Pillard, Gerald Bowman had an interception that game. Some great plays throughout that game. So shout out to the defense for those two. The next one's from Raul Sanchez, 323. Will we see an aggressive offense this fall? Run game first, pass game second? Yeah, I mean, I think we're still going to be a strong pass-heavy offense. I would love to see, just like we did last year, though, with Marshawn Lloyd, with Austin Jones this year stepping up, kind of like the Travis Dye, Austin Jones last year. I'd love to see a very heavy run game. Darwin Barlow stepping up as well. Some of the freshmen, Ray League Brown getting involved. So I'd love to see 50-50, but I think when it comes down to it, obviously we have Caleb Williams, so I think our offense is going to be a lot more pass-heavy, but I would like to see it be a little more 50-50 this year. Next we have is from Marker 1001. Cody, as a competitor, you obviously prepare your best for every single opponent. Collegiately, what defense unit / player made you focus or be aware that much more? Same question as a pro. I think that's kind of the same thing from earlier. Again, I'd go with Stanford in college and then the Ravens when I was in the NFL. Just two very, very good defenses. As a quarterback was tough to go against every year. The next one is from John Thornton 949. Why hasn't Damani Jackson cracked into the starting lineup yet? Again, obviously, he started in the spring game. I think it's just going back to that consistency, right? He's got to build that confidence, that consistency, be that. And don't even worry about the 5-star, the star ratings, but just be that player we know you can be. Have that confidence back. Go out there, be a dog. Go out and win one-on-ones this fall camp. And I think if he does all those things, we're going to see the Damani Jackson that the USC fans are waiting to see.
Injuries a bit, too.
Yeah, injuries, absolutely. But just since he's coming back, I want to see some more consistency from him, and I'm sure a lot of USC fans do as well. But the playmaking ability, everything else is there. It's just time for him to put it all together, and I think he will this year. Kevin Peterson, who we just talked about, who won, hit us with the question. He said, which game are you most excited about this season? Obviously, Notre Dame, UCLA stand out, but I'm going to go with Utah. I'm ready. I'm ready to get that bad taste out of our mouth. I'm excited to play Utah. I think that's going to be a fun one. Next one is from Trojan Dad 516. Hey, son, if you played on defense instead of offense, what position would you play? I actually did play defense growing up. I was a safety, so I would have to
you said you never played defense.
I did until like 5th grade. So I guess Pee Wee, I played a little defense. Actually, no, that's a lie. I played a little bit in middle school as well. But once I got to high school, I played one game defense. I got hit of the week too for our hometown sports.
Hit of the week.
But I was using my shoulder, so my head coach, I was playing quarterback and I played corner that game. Hit of the week, and then my coach was like, yeah, you're done with that. So no more of that for me. It was short-lived. It was only one game.
It's okay.
It was my sophomore year, too, first year on varsity. So, I had to prove myself, right?
Yeah, you can brag about it still.
Yeah, so I can brag about it. I got the T-shirt back at home, too. It says Hitman of the Week with, a cracked helmet.
Oh, you need to bring that one day to
okay, I think it's back in Bakersfield at my parents' house. I'll try to find it. Alyssa Bubble said, guess who got their driver's license? Alyssa, congratulations. If you're a first-time listener, Alyssa's week in and week out. She was a student of my mom's. Always either a football question or something super random, but congrats. And then this is from the Delroy McDaniel. One, how explosive can we be with losing key receivers this year? Obviously, a couple guys transferred, and then Jordan Addison went to the NFL. I think we still have a great receiving core. Obviously, we've got Dorian Singer coming in. The 3 starters we talked about last week, or at least to start off camp, with Brendan, Taj, and Mario. And then you add in Zachariah Branch, Mekhi Lemon, Jacoby. Some of these younger guys stepping up. Michael Jackson. Who am I missing? Kyron Hudson, another guy.
Yeah.
And that's just the list goes on and on. The depth we have at that position. But yeah, I absolutely think we can be very explosive. And then obviously you've got Caleb Williams throwing the football. And then I've got one more on a private message. This was from Kyle Miyamoto. So I noticed when you run a zone blocking scheme play, an offensive lineman, usually the offside tackle will tap his butt. It's indicating that he's not going to block with the flow. My question is, doesn't that tell the defense where the play is going? That's a great question, Kyle. I'd have to see the play you're talking about, but that does happen a lot. And that's really just, and yeah, yes, it is telling a little bit. When we talked about last week with offense, a Ringo call or a Roger call or whatever it may be going to the right, or a rip call, you'll see sometimes an offensive lineman, just to reiterate the call, tap their butt which way they're going. That's not really to tell the quarterback. That's more so for the running back knows, hey, I'm sliding right. I got a Ringo call. I need you to come block the edge now. Yes, but I guess the only other way to do it is you're already hearing a Ringo call. You're already hearing the calls. I guess if you turn around and said, hey, I'm going right. So it's not really secretive when it comes to adjustments on the field. And especially when you play a team in the conference over and over, they're going to get used to your calls. They're going to get used to your signals. You can change them up a lot, but you don't want to confuse your own team with changing signals and calls week in and week out. So, yeah, to Kyle's point, it does give away the play a little bit or where the offense is going, but it's almost like saying, hey, this is what we're doing. Now come and stop us. So, with that being said, I feel like I got through those pretty quickly.
You did.
Quicker than normal.
Under 5 minutes.
Let's go.
Well done.
Good. So with that being said, I am done with my 2 minute. I'm going to do the final wrap up too because I'm getting delirious.
Perfect.
Had a blast doing this episode. I love that we're on video now. It's awesome getting to get a whole new set of audience or a whole new audience, I guess, on YouTube that can listen to us as well. We do week in and week out. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Week in and week out throughout the season, we do breakdowns of who we're playing. Also, if you're new here, but overall, this is just fully around USC football. We get some other topics as well. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Have a blast doing it. I love being back around USC football. The fans have been so welcoming. Love all you guys. Fight on. I am out.
Yeah, apologies. This was not our cleanest episode. It was a little sloppy because we were tired, and I know I just coughed at the end of it, which is a no-no. I usually cut that, but hey, it's us. We are live. It is 10:12. This is But
I will say this. I do think that's why some of our listeners, and that's why we've gotten so close. Like, we're honest. Like, we're just brutally honest. This is how it goes. We have great, I'm kind of bragging, humble bragging on both of us. We touch all the important topics. We talk about all the meat and potatoes, as Keely says, about every episode. We get in the offense and defense about everything. But we're also relatable. We like to be transparent, have fun with it.
We're relatable.
Yeah, we're relatable. I mean, we're not up here being serious. You know, you gotta have a little.
We're human.
Yeah, we're human. We have fun with it.
We were extra human this episode, so apologies is what I'm saying. Anyway.
Yeah, you wrap it up. I'm done.
We're so close to fall camp starting, which is crazy. I hope you guys enjoyed the previews. I know we didn't get into special teams, so we can probably sprinkle that in next week.
Yeah.
We have Pac-12 Media Day to talk about. That's coming out that's happening this Friday. I will be there, so look out for coverage from there. A lot to get to, a lot to cover this season. Really excited for it. Really excited to do the podcast with you, Cody and Dion. That's gonna wrap it up. Time to go home.
Yeah, let's go home.
Alrighty. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next week.